don't know What's up, everybody? How you doing? Hope you're doing well today, guys. Put that here. There's gonna be more people that join still, but you know. What's up, everybody? Hey, hope you guys are ready for the stream. I have the Dylan Burns chat down here as well. So, all right. Now, I know, guys, you already donated a lot today for the earlier stream. So, if you haven't, you know, sorry, they're talking over here, so it's hard for me to. There we go. So, if you haven't gotten a chance to donate earlier, I will be reading donations at the end of the debate panel. So, if you want to help support the channel and you haven't had a chance to do so yet, now's your chance to do it. All right. Like I said, you guys already donated earlier, but you know, if you want to donate again, that's still significantly appreciated, of course. Okay, Hunter, what the hell is happening? I am going on a debate panel to talk about all kinds of good shit. So thank you, Sky Needs Sleep, for the $5 donation. I love you, and thank you for supporting the channel. That means a lot. As always, if you guys want to help support the channel, you are able to do so by simply donating via Super Chat, or you can donate to my PayPal as well. That is also an option, and is also a very appreciated option, mind you. So, yeah, if that's the kind of thing you want to do, boys, then I will greatly appreciate it, okay? I'm trying to figure out where to fucking put this thing. I'll just have this here. But Sky Needs Sleep, thank you for the $5 donation already. Thank you for being our first donor. You are awesome. And cool. And amazing. And like I said already, God has personally told me that he loves you. I will be checking all donations at the end of the debate panel. Probably won't have a chance to read through the debate or the super chats when the debate is actually in process, but as always, it's still greatly appreciated, and I look forward to reading all of your donations either before it starts or afterwards. And hey, Atheist Jewish Messiah, what a cool name. Thank you very much for the $5 donation. Appreciate it, my friend. Is Hunter master debating? Okay, how did you know? Sup, my favorite grifter, full beta SJW. That's me, boys. Okay. I guess you guys are gonna have to see me twice. That sucks. I already gave too much money today to a charity stream for trans youth in Texas. Lame. You should have donated this to me. Pfft. No, I'm just kidding. That's great. Obviously, you should, if it's a choice between me or a charity to help trans people, donate to the charity. Holy shit, of course. It's very admirable, Shy Doomer. Cool. Tinsote, thank you for the $5. What are your thoughts on the Disney situation in Florida? I think it's mainly just conservatives mad that a company thinks that gay people aren't bad. So, to be expected, as always. Yeah, we do have the Gish Galloping Master himself here. Are we still waiting for one more person, right? We're waiting for Maddie Cakes? How do I get the names to be permanently on here? Oh, cool. Take that off. Participants. Okay, wait, there's... What's that do? That doesn't do... Oh, wait. No, that's not what I'm looking for. There's where I can add people. Isn't there a way to keep the names on here? Oops. I don't know. Oh boy. So they're still just rambling about a bunch of dumb shit. Just talking nonstop. If you have a question for Hunter, the best way to get him to answer is to donate. That is true. Get this up. I did see that I got a message. Was that from Coder Joe? Missed your gay is not a sin debate. I had a debate with some of your Discord mods yesterday, but want to hear you. Would you debate me? Of course I would. I'd be more than happy to. I think I'm going to adjust this real quickly. Wait. That barely made a difference. Cool. All right. Best way to get Hunter to answer my questions is to be me, obviously, because I'm flawless. That is also correct. Yes. Exactly. Now, I'm obviously going to be playing some Fortnite, guys, during this, okay? Because I don't just sit around for a fucking 3-hour-long stream. Just, like, staring at the camera. So, if you guys want me to put Fortnite on the screen, I will. So, I should probably get this set up now. Oof. Lickety-splickety. I'm surprised it doesn't keep the crop. It's probably best that it doesn't do that, isn't it? We're still waiting for a few more guests, which gives me time to get my shit set up. Hooray! I should really be removing some of this bullshit. Chat temp? Yeah, like this shit should be gone. Because I have a fuck ton of random shit in here. What's this image? Oh. What's this image? Oh, okay. So this is my chat background. That's what this is here. Okay. This can be removed. What is chat video? Oh shit, that looks fucking kind of cool, kind of tacky. Getting rid of it. Okay, remove that one. Background, what's this? Don't know, don't care. Getting rid of it. Goodbye. Chat attempt 2. Oh, that's my main chat. Okay. Rename to main chat. Hey, pussy, go back and say what you said to Steve Knight's face. I did, you fucking cuck. Are you this dumb, or did you just not watch anything? I literally had a huge fight with him the other day, in which I called him a chuckle fuck to his face. I know you guys are really mad that I was respectful for agreeing to be respectful, but still, like, how long are you degenerates gonna stick around simping for another man? You're cringe, okay? Fuck you. What's this text? Christmas. Holy shit. Damn, this is why I should be clearing stuff up. What's this? Oh, my cute old socials. How cute. Remove. Okay, that's the chat thing. Top overlay. The fucking hell is that? What's this host chat? I have two of them? Okay. Well, I guess we'll just remove that one then. Media source. That doesn't do anything, so remove. All right, follower goal. That can be gone. Hey, Maddie Cakes just finally arrived. Cool. So I should probably unmute stuff.
For our own panel. I think we got to stand together here, boys.
No, I'm my own man. I don't stand with anyone, so.
No, I'm kidding. But no, I think whatchamacallit, I don't care. Like that shield is used for AOC too, of like at least they're challenging the establishment. But I mean, if you're challenging the establishment just by saying the most inflammatory
give me an example.
possible
MTG. Give me an example with MTG.
Screaming
like,
through AOC. I mean, screaming through AOC's mail slot.
There's like nothing between our ears.
Comparing the invasion of Ukraine by Russia to our southern border.
All right, calm me down.
Oh boy,
Dylan's about to jump in. Hey, buddy. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, I'm still muted on their end, so I can talk to you guys. Okay. Wait, why is this? There we go. That works. All right. All right. Hey, Sky needs sleep. Thank you very much for the $2 donation. I appreciate that very much. Thank you for your support of the channel today. Do you know what the topics for the debate are? Yes, the debate is going to be, should the Bible be banned in schools? Which the answer is no, even though I fucking hate the Bible. And the other subject is going to be the McCarthy leaked audio in regards to, you know, him basically saying that Trump sucks. Wait, are we starting?
Pokemon battles, you know, water type, grass types, the whole thing. And I think I did
and the last subject is the pros and cons of canceling student loan debt, which I don't really have much of a opinion on that one. So
you get the hang of it after almost two years now. Anyway, welcome everybody to what is the 64th, 65th, fucking millionth Hippy Dippy Roundtable. I appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy Friday night life, which I know you all must have turned down many date requests and party invitations. And I know Rob wanted to go clubbing, so I appreciate everybody tuning in and making time for the show. I appreciate it. Definitely, since, as we all know, I am leaving political Twitch forever because I'm a profiteer.
Yes.
Anyway.
Oh, sorry.
We're going to... Yes. Yeah, Hunter wants the Friday slot. Now we're going to go into the rules. The first rule is we will not be attacking anybody's immutable characteristics. If you need clarifications for what I consider immutable characteristics, you can DM me while you're on this program. I don't care what you do on this show, but on this show, we gender people appropriately. I could explain this to you why we do it for multiple reasons. If you are interested, you can DM me to get more clarification on that. Also, when I'm talking, nobody else is talking. I am talking purely to moderate. I am not going to get involved in these specific points today. There's no foreign policy topics, so I doubt I'll be that compelled to get involved. Besides that, I also have a notebook in front of me. This is the first time I've streamed standing up because the chair was too uncomfortable. So this is going to be a standing stream. So I feel like a very synergized businessman who feels better about himself now with my standing desk. So I'm going to be taking notes. So just raise your hand. I'll write your name down if you're having trouble making your way into the conversation. But please do make note of this. And this is very important because people forget this so quickly. That is your last resort, not your first resort. I will eventually get the conversation over to you. But don't think once I give you the thumbs up and I write your name down, you're going to be talking in the next 5 minutes. You can wait for as long as 30 minutes, depending how long the line is, and if the flow of conversation is evolving naturally. And I want you all to realize that right now, so you're not looking at me later like, hey, Dylan, I raised my hand 15, 20 minutes ago. Tough shit, if I'm going to be very blunt with it. It's to help you eventually get involved. It's not to be a crutch, so to speak. Okay? Is there any questions about the rules, any clarifications that are needed for tonight's show? No. Wonderful. Then we're going to go into a short introductory period. For each topic, you will have a short intro and outro statement where you cannot interrupt anybody else. I will make liberal use of the mute button since I cannot yell in this Polish apartment. It is an Airbnb, not a hotel, so I will just have angry neighbors, which I won't understand what they're yelling at me, so I won't know if it's a threat or not, so I'm not going to yell. Wonderful. So we're going to start to my left with Cam Higby.
What's up, guys? My name's Cam. This is just introduction. I'm just saying who I am, right? Yep. Hi, I'm Cam. I make TikToks and I debate politics. I'm a conservative.
Fantastic. To my right, Gappy5.
Hi, I'm Gappy V. It's a V. I mainly play games and do a variety of other things, but occasionally I talk politics, and I would say I'm pretty progressive, right on the line between Dem Sock and Sock Dem, I guess.
Okay.
Obama.
Next. Dead memes. Half Baked Takes.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Half Baked Takes. I was supposed to be streaming on Twitch tonight, but that fell to shit. So I will be posting this to YouTube. You can find me there on at Todd from Half Baked Takes. Same with Twitter. And thank you, Hippy Dippy crew. Thank you, Dylan, for having me on. I'm excited to do this again.
Happy to have you on. Hunter Avalone.
What's up? My name's Hunter Avalone, a former conservative turned social democrat. You can find me on YouTube, TikTok, and Twitch, all under my name, Hunter Avalone. Thanks for having me on today, Dylan.
Happy to have you on. Jeb.
Hey guys, I'm Jeb10. I'm also like on the conservative libertarian side of things. If you were gonna watch Half Baked Takes, watch me instead. Jeb10 on Twitch, Jeb10 RIP on Twitter.
Matty Cakes.
Hi, I'm Maddie Cakes. My mute button's being real cool. Hi, I'm Maddie Cakes. I'm a lefty streamer, in real life digital strategist for a bunch of congressional and statewide campaigns. And I stream on Twitch as Maddie Cakes _, and I'm on lots of other social channels, and I'm great. And I'm correct.
Fantastic. Now we're throwing it over to Mythic Politics.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm a super based fucking communist. I'm here to argue as a pan-leftist, ANCOM, writing a book on political conspiracy, so I may deviate into, why your idea is stupid and the sort of deleterious or downstream implications of your dumb belief. And I'm here to, just basically meme first and ask questions later.
Fantastic. And we'll end the intro segment with Rob Noor.
My name's Rob Noor. I'm a populist conservative father, most importantly. I was super excited this week because I got a dumpster and was able to start doing some spring cleaning, and I'm getting a fence next week.
Fantastic. Oh, and Rob, I saw your message. Sorry I haven't replied to it yet. I've just been busy. We're going to now go into the first topic, which we're going to start with Joe Biden canceling student debt. There have been reports that Joe Biden is looking at canceling student debt. We don't know the specifics of exactly what that'll look like yet. It's all just been reports. We haven't seen Biden come out with the canceling student debt speech. And if he did, I missed it, if it happened today. And so my question to the room is very simple. What do you think of the Biden administration considering canceling student debt? Do you think he should? Do you think he shouldn't? What do you think he should do? I'm going to start with Cam Higby.
He's going to call on me first. Yeah, so I think that it would probably be pretty fiscally irresponsible to especially cancel past student debt. But in terms of like future student debt, I think that there are probably some better solutions. Like tuition has been steadily rising and outpacing inflation since 1980. And that's enabled by the government just shelling out unlimited money in loans. But if the government were to suddenly stop paying like obscene amounts in loans or regulate private loan firms and prevent them from like shelling out this unlimited amount of money. The colleges would be unable to like continuously raise their tuitions, obviously causing student debt to lessen or at the very least stay the way it is currently. Yeah, I guess I'll pass it on to the next person.
Gappy.
I think canceling student debt could be helpful. I think the big problem is that we have to consider how much it's actually going to help people who need it versus don't. I think the majority of student debt is held by people whose incomes are already over 75K, right? Which is well over the average for an individual or the median for an individual who doesn't have any sort of degree whatsoever. College is at the end of the day an investment, right? And I think there is probably some bigger changes we could do than purely canceling student debt one time. We can try to figure out how we can make college cheaper. We can try to offer free alternatives like free community college or trade schools. We can try to just change the public perception on how we see college rather than as a mandatory thing, but instead as an investment where you have to make a very strong choice in the same way that you have to make a very strong choice as to whether or not you're going to rent or whether you're going to buy. The only frustrating thing I see from this conversation is I think a lot of people who complain about the issues or talk about how like, oh, look at this person who has $200,000 of student debt might not see the bigger picture. I think there was a tweet I saw the other day or like earlier today about somebody from Yale Law School who was complaining about how he had like $100,000 to $150,000 in debt and how Joe Biden could cancel even a quarter of his debt and it would make a huge difference, even though he already has such a prestigious degree that has such high returns on investment. To think that you are then entitled to some sort of loan cancellation kind of misses the point of how we try to enact progressive policies.
And we're going to throw it over now to half-baked takes.
So it'd be completely like fiscally irresponsible by Biden if he were to just by executive order wipe away debt. He may have some legal opportunities to do it, but I don't think ultimately he will. I just see it as like a poison, like just something that he can't run with in the long term, because everybody's going to end up seeing that if you just I apologize, I'm losing my train of thought. I got like 4 different things going on. All right, kids signed a loan for money for college. They should pay for that fucking loan. They shouldn't be bailed out by the government. Then we move on to the next step that if you do this, yeah, you may solve this problem for the people that had taken out student loans in the past, but you're offering no solutions for the future. As people have previously stated, once you... I'm just going to pass it. I'm sorry, Dylan.
No worries. It's okay. We can throw it over to Jeb.
What about me?
Yeah, Hunter got skipped there, but...
Okay.
It's because I'm white.
Yes.
Oop.
Jeb?
Yeah, so I think that it would be a bad idea, no matter what administration was considering it. I think, as people said, I don't think it does the best to actually dedicate those funds to people who need them, for one. But secondly, I think that we should just consider solutions that actually keep it from becoming a problem again, not just canceling past student debt right now. And I think the way we do that is honestly by ending federally backed student loans altogether. There's no reason why we should allow just one type of debt to be completely exempt from all the regular credit rating requirements and regulations that we have in every other area of debt. If you don't believe that they're necessary, then why are they necessary in the other places? And if you do believe they're necessary, then it's pretty obvious why we've created a debt crisis by foregoing them in this particular instance and making them unbankruptable, all because they are the only debt that an 18-year-old is able to take with no credit history whatsoever. It's ridiculous to me, and I think that by doing all of those things, we manufactured a debt crisis, and we should end that and consider more affordable routes for education, regarding, community colleges being allowed to give bachelor's degrees, maybe encouraging trade schools or working out of high school a little more, and things like that. But I think we should end federally backed student loans altogether.
I'm going to throw it over to Hunter Avalone.
Well, you know what? I hate to be that guy, but I'm kind of the guy who's just sitting on the fence with this issue. This is not something that I have looked into a great deal, but I do think that there are a list of pros and a list of cons that can come from this. So I do think that one of the pros from eliminating some of these student loan debts would be just stimulating the economy so that people would no longer be held to their debt, and they would probably be able to open businesses or just contribute to the economy further. There's also something to be said about the fact that student loan debt does right now disproportionately hurt Black students and people who are of lower income. But the problem with just forgiving the student loan debts is that we are then benefiting the more wealthy individuals who more or less are able to absorb the high cost of that debt that they've gotten themselves into. I think another problem with this is that it's really just a very temporary bandage for an overall larger problem. Of course, part of the reason that a lot of these student loan debts are as expensive as they are nowadays is because the government tried to incentivize student loans, and in doing so, that caused colleges to raise the prices more and more because they realized that the government would essentially loan infinite amount of money. So I think we also run the risk of, if we absolve some of this debt, we then could contribute again to that issue where they're going to hike up the prices again because they realize that the government is once again just trying to incentivize the loans as much as possible. So I think that there are some pros and some cons. Biden's only shooting to get rid of like $10,000 in student loan debt, so I don't really know if it's even that significant at the end of the day, but that's kind of why I'm just on the fence with this issue.
Okay, I'm going to throw it now over to Maddie Cakes.
So I am in favor of the government forgiving student loan debt, and there are a number of reasons why. Now, in an ideal world, and I think it was good of Gappy to bring this up, that in an ideal world, we would have it so that those who have the means to pay back their loans, went to elite institutions or pursued a graduate's degree, make more money, that they would not receive it. The problem with doing some sort of means testing is that the cost of that, all that administrative cost just to means test is absurd, and it would make the actual cost of forgiving debt astronomical. Means testing simply just adds on more bureaucratic layers. So what I recommend, or what I hope they end up doing, is doing carte blanche forgiving all federal student loan debt. Now, some people here might be waxing poetic about the dangers and the financial irresponsibility of this, but the truth is that the economic impact of folks having student loan payments that bog them down, that prevent them from making large purchases, that prevent them from starting businesses, from investing in their communities, from investing in local businesses, the economic impact there far outweighs the potential economic impact of simply forgiving those loans. And that's not only in terms of immediate impact, but looking forward to the future, it's pretty substantial. There's no reason that someone who took out an $18,000 loan when they were 18, and I say this because this happened, not to me, luckily, but to some people on Twitter, take out $18,000, and then even after never missing a payment, making every single payment as they were supposed to for over 10 years, still ended up owing over $80,000. That is absurd. There's got to be a better way to make sure that people get the higher education they need, because that is ultimately what fuels our economy. Now, I think everyone else pointing out trade schools, yes, totally agree with that. Lowering the overall cost of getting an education, absolutely. But a good starting point is just to forgive student loan debt and give people a chance to invest in their future.
Fantastic. I'm now going to throw it over to Mythic Politics.
Yeah, we should cancel out as much student loan debt as we can. The economic impact of this, it would be fiscally responsible. The economic impact would be good. It's basic Keynesian economics. It takes the money away from banks who are just expatriating it and financializing and treating this like a subsidy bubble effectively. And what it would do is it would incentivize people to buy housing, have kids, and invest in student loans, invest in small businesses, which are actual nucleation of economic growth. So the moral and virtue argument is, yes, we should have highly actuated people who are learning, doing everything they can to fulfill their own or to move society in the way it needs to go by having a highly educated populace, having rich R&D technology, and a highly actuated people. And then the economic argument for it would be that under MMT, it's basically a free lunch situation where it's just a net positive to incentivize people to go to education because of the downstream the long-term implications of the economic growth that would happen as a result of a highly educated populace. Any way you look at it, it's good. The arguments about moral hazard you're going to hear are bad. Means testing is a flop. It doesn't work. We need universalized programs, and the only argument that we should really engage with on this is how to yes, it should be forgiven, and how do we prevent it from building up again.
And Rob Noor to wrap up intros.
All right. First, this will just cause even more inflation. It's amazing to me to see how many left-wingers have been proven wrong over and over again that think that printing trillions of dollars won't have any effect on the economy. Every time they're wrong, it's not them that pay the price. Most of them live with their fucking parents anyways and have never worked a real job in their life. It's poor people in the working class that end up paying more. You're paying more at the pump. You're paying more every time you shop groceries. Fuck it. What's another $40 billion to Ukraine and another $1 trillion to pay off student loan debt and shit like that? I say, why stop there? I'm really convinced. I'm going to change my entire opening. I think Mythic and Maddie totally nailed it. You're right. Think how much we'll stimulate the economy by doing this. Let's get rid of mortgage debt as well. How about car loans? I have a friend that I know that knows someone that used to work on a yacht for some billionaire. Let's forgive his loan too. Think how much that will stimulate the economy. Isn't it funny watching these lefties all of a sudden talk about more money in people's pockets in the form of forgiving loans and making inflation increase and making poor and working class people pay more, but having more money in certain people's pockets will stimulate the economy. And yet one of these people say they're a communist, which would mean they don't want your money in your pockets ever whatsoever anyways. The truth of the matter is that Joe Biden's doing this because he's massively unpopular. Who could have predicted that? A dementia-addled patient who didn't even campaign the last 2 months is going to be terrible in every way whatsoever, foreign policy-wise, economically. So he realizes the Democrats are going to get shellacked in the 2022 midterms, and he's throwing up a Hail Mary. But sorry to tell you, progressives, he ain't going to forgive all the student loan debt. He's going to string you along just like Democrats have done for the past 10 years on it. This, people already said, like Jeb was very good, we should stop the government getting involved in this. That's what's caused the massive spike. Once the government guaranteed these loans, we saw a massive spike in the cost of education. The best thing we could do to make education affordable like it was in the 70s, where people could work part-time jobs and still pay for their, maybe not Ivy League, but like schools I went to, like state schools, you used to be able to work your way through it. Now, because the government got involved, you have to take out these massive debts. If you do want to make someone pay for it, fine. Take all the money from the endowments of the education places. Like, stop giving any government money whatsoever to any university until we pay back this. Why
Antonio
should my
Marin,
friends
thank you for the
that
$2
went
donation.
straight
I joined
into
at the
the
right time.
workforce because
You
they
did.
weren't deemed smart enough to be in college, why should they have to pay for my poor fucking decision because I spent 10 years in college getting a master's degree in speech communication that entitles me to sit here and argue with a bunch of 20-year-olds instead of having a life on a Friday night? So I think it's stupid. The last thing I'll say about it is a lot of people use these student loan bills for all sorts of reasons to personally benefit themselves. Watch a great show like Judge Judy. 1 out of every 5 cases is something like this. Someone, a 40-year-old will be like, yeah, I got tinted windows and went to vacation in Cabo. And Judy will say, what's your profession? They'll say, I'm unemployed. And they'll say, well, how'd you pay for that? And they'll say, student loan assistant. That's the type of shit we're talking about bailing out. Everyone knows that this is a scam, that you could enroll for university, never graduate, use the student loan money, and then it's income-based repayment anyway, so many of these people don't pay it back. There's already programs, by the way, which many of you probably don't know about, that says if you work for a nonprofit organization and reliably make your payments for 10 years, that they will eliminate all of your student loan debt. I happen to work in one of those fields. I work with people with developmental disabilities and home health care. So if you're having a problem, you can always volunteer or get a job for a nonprofit like that and get your loan wiped out anyways.
Okay, we're now going to move into open discussion. Does anybody want to start us off?
I'll go for it.
Sure, Gappy.
Okay, I want to address 2 things. We'll start off with Rob about that last point that you brought up, the PSLF. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is basically saying if you decide to work in public service, you could totally work in a bunch of different fields, but if you decide to, for lack of a better word, take the salary-based L and go work in public service for 10 years, make 120 different payments, you work in the public sector for 10 different years, and you're not missing a single payment, then in that case, your loan will be forgiven. The problem with that program is it's very, very, it lacks a lot of transparency. And for a lot of people, they'll go through that full 10 years. And I think about 23% of them get denied for reasons other than it hasn't been 10 years yet. So 23% of people are going through that program thinking they're totally okay. They spend 10 years in the public sector knowing that they're taking losses by not working in private sectors instead, where there are higher salaries and benefits. They go in and apply, and then they actually don't get it, which is a failure on our part. So So I don't think that's really like an easy solution to the issue to just have everybody go into the public sector when our current program doesn't really have a proper implementation. While we're on the discussions of implementation, another thing to bring up, and I think Maddie brought up the situation of someone who might have 15K in student loan debt, but then they're actually having 80K after making all these different payments. One thing to consider is that public student loans are so much different than private student loans. Private student loans has a lot higher interest. They have a lot more incentives in order to make sure that you don't know how your loan works and so that you pay more money. And public student loans specifically have something called subsidized loans, where even though there is interest, they don't actually start charging interest until about, I believe, 6 months after you graduate, which is absolutely insane. The government is basically, I mean, it's in the word, subsidizing your education by giving you up to a certain limit subsidized student loans where there's zero interest whatsoever while you're in college. That's absolutely phenomenal. So the idea of, I think I heard it from someone else earlier, canceling public debt and making sure that public student loan debt is illegal, but private loans are still okay, that's absolutely antithetical to the issue. That just makes things worse by switching everybody over to private loans rather than public loans, which provide those types of interest-free incentives to individuals.
I don't know if anyone said that. I think we were talking, or if you're talking about what I said that we should regulate the way that private firms give loans so that they're not giving like excessive amounts of money to colleges to the point, and of course like regulate how the government can give loans to colleges so that excessive amounts of money aren't just flowing into these colleges in the form of loans, allowing them to effectively raise their prices to the moons infinitely as much as they want. And I think people would be much more okay with lowering interest rates or like forgiving maybe like interest past inflation on loans than they would be just like forgiving the debt altogether.
What do you guys think about?
Hold on. He was.
Okay.
I just want to make clear. I did say we should end federally backed student loans, and we should also make student loans bankruptable, which is the reason why private student loans are allowed to be so predatory. Because again, we have allowed creditors to subvert regular credit reporting and qualifying requirements that they use for every other type of debt with student loans by making them non-bankruptable, because to them there's almost zero risk. You can't bankrupt out of a student loan.
Yeah, you know why?
100%.
It's because lawyers and doctors used to go through an 8-year education and then discharge it immediately. So it was because this accrued cost of basically lawyers and discharging their law school debt. Because they knew the system wherein they could do that easily through the bankruptcy law, so they had to exempt it from bankruptcy because there was too many people with $high educations gaming the system.
Yeah, but that also
really quick.
Wait.
He was responding to me.
Okay.
So let me.
Yeah, well, I understand that. Yeah. So we're gonna have Jeb respond. We're gonna have this back and forth go. Maddie was trying to get in there for a second, so I wrote Maddie's name down, and I'll write down half-baked takes as well. Continue.
Yeah, so that doesn't change the way that exempting them from bankruptcy interacts with the rest of the credit system. The issue is banks are going to qualify someone they are giving credit to based on the risk that they present. And when you make it so they can't bankrupt, the risk they present is automatically so low that the student loan debt growth rate outpaces the rise in tuition costs right now by 350%. It's clear that the way we perform these loans is making it so these schools can raise their tuition, not the other way around.
Yeah,
and because we are allowing them to be federally backed in so many cases and exempting them from bankruptcy, there's little to no risk from private or public partnered lenders to allow these kids to take out ridiculous amounts of debt at stupid interest rates.
The bankruptcy has a big problem, though, which is that new college graduates literally have very little assets to surrender to begin with. So kind of like what Mythic Politics was just saying, you will have a group of people that will abuse the ability to bankrupt and just default on that loan. And you'll essentially have people gaming the system because, again, if you are just entering into college, you probably don't have a lot of assets to surrender in the case of you declaring bankruptcy to begin with. So
and I'm not saying I'm against discharging loans, but the thing is, also it's fundamental. It's a fundamental outcome of it. Us using a market-based solution for education after the Cold War, after 1965, with the different federal acts that we used to incentivize education, so as to compete with the Soviets, i.e., tech and R&D and everything else. What we should have done is pulled out college schools from the market instead of allowing banks to be an intermediary and paying basically a holding company 80% of the loan and subsidizing it, which has led to these spiraling costs at 130% of inflation. it's a problem, and the sort of win-win mechanism of the schools has allowed them to spiral up, pulling trade schools, some trade schools possibly, and other non-private colleges, other state schools out of the market would help facilitate that, or just make it universally free to apply. And then because that's the only way to stop the moral that fixes the moral harm issue, and it stops the accrual of their debt, and it makes the debt a fixing it one time, and it makes it moot going forward.
Listen, I don't disagree
a public
that
option
that's...
for college would definitely help this issue immensely.
Well, we do have one.
to provide
I
a
mean,
free avenue.
Community college is largely free. The issue is they can't issue bachelor's degrees, and associate's degrees are notoriously not a great return on investment. If I'm not against allowing community colleges to give bachelor's degrees so we have a free option. But Biden isn't saying he is going to forgive student debt and then create a robust free option. We are talking about, should Biden forgive student loans in the current system? And what I'm saying is that does more to exacerbate our current problems with debt growth than it does to actually fix them. It's just going to allow it to balloon even further after the fact.
What Biden is suggesting is a 10% of forgiving up to 10K of the federal loans which are being collected by Navient is effectively what he's doing, and that 10K would be better served as rent, housing, down payment on a house, investing in a family, investing in a small business. Any sort of, if you were going to put a gun to my head and tell me why it's good for the market under the capitalistic norms, I would say it's basic Keynesian economics. Put the money back in the people's hands and just do basic demand side economics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to be a proponent of debt.
Wait. Okay. Could we? I saw that Robbie tried to get in there. I just want to make sure Maddie can say what they say. Yeah. Then I'll have you go, and then I want to keep going. I have baked. You're also written down. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, this is an interesting conversation, but one option that I wanted to bring forward to see what you guys think. There are certain countries where they cap the total amount that any student can pay on their loans at 150% of the principal. So in that way, they're preventing the interest from getting out of control. So you don't have any more situations where you take out 20K of loans and then end up owing 150K. In some other countries, I know in Germany, another option that they offer, or at least for any sort of student loan debt, they have it where you are only on the hook to pay your student loans if you are employed, if you have income. And it works extremely well because that way people don't feel desperate.
Yeah, we kind of have programs here in America currently that people don't use. The problem is people don't utilize these programs. If you want to talk about an education,
because of the bureaucratic red tape they have to jump through, it doesn't surprise me.
That's fine. Let's talk about that. But the problem is that instead, Joe Biden just saying, "I'm going to wipe it away." Through either executive action or Congress is going to come in and pass legislation that allows it to happen. Either one, it seems like it's a little fucked up because you're setting a precedent where the government is going to come in and pay on individuals' debts. And that's where I worry about this. While I might agree with you that wiping away $10,000 in debt for all of these people, it might do better in the economy for like rent, housing, shit, like bills, like that's fine, but you're not solving the real problem. And like Jeb said, it's if you don't fix the problem, it's just going to keep ballooning. And the real problem is the federal government being in the business of giving loans to every single person who comes and asks for one.
I'd be kind of
that's why the question. Can I follow up on that really quickly?
Sure, and then we're going to go over to Rob.
Yeah. Would you be then open? So rather than saying, okay, they're just going to forgive this debt, would you be open, or do you think it would maybe be a good idea if we set some sort of ceiling? Maybe it's 150% of principal, and saying if you have already paid that amount because they have already, contributed, or if we set for future loans saying people shouldn't be on the hook for over 150% the principal loan. What do we think? Could something like that, where we're structuring loans both retroactively and moving forward in a way that prevents these costs from ballooning, would that be amenable?
That's what I'm recommending, because in every other credit market, you don't see loans ending up 150% over principal because they can be bankrupted out of, and by inflating interest rates that much, you are increasing the rate of default. This is the problem that we have with an unbankruptable student debt system, is you remove any incentive for banks not to inflate interest, because the whole reason why you wouldn't have those big interest rates in the first place is because of the risk of default. That is what banks are always looking at when they're qualifying someone who's taking
Banks
Yes,
are
you-
8%. Banks are 8%. 92% of the student loans are federal loans. So moving forward, that's sort of like when you're talking about banks' ability to control interest. Unless you're talking about the Federal Reserve, it doesn't really matter as far as the funding. The Federal Reserve invoking that as a funding mechanism to pay for colleges. It's sort of a moot aspect of the argument, and the real problem itself is the fact that we have not done what Germany has done and basically made it baseline free for people to go to college and incentivized, because they understand the long-term implications of that, or a robust economy with people who know how to fucking think.
Well,
I have to.
What about
I
the
have to
wait,
cut in and
wait,
agree with
wait,
that
wait,
for sure.
No. It's Rob's turn. So I told Rob it was being
just two things to say here. Sure, two things to say real quick. First, it is very enjoyable to watch two of my left-wing friends here make the argument for basic fiscal conservatism. We need people with more money in their pockets, and we need to cut bureaucratic red tape. So I guess they would be in favor of ending government regulations that are bureaucratic and make people jump through loopholes. I guess they would also be in favor of tax cuts to allow people to keep more money in their own pockets. I'm sure they were big champions of the Bush and the Trump tax cuts. I'm sure they were big fans of putting more money in people's pockets.
You mean
Trump's tax cuts literally contributed only
Yeah,
to the
love
money
that.
of the wealthy people. The Trump's tax cuts did
All
not
that
actually
money in
benefit
people's
Explain to you
pockets
how
wasn't good.
economics
Gotcha.
work again.
No
This
cuts
is
for the
Glad you're hitting all the
poor.
talking points.
Wait.
Everybody.
Okay, let's let Rob finish his point.
why.
Well, because Mythic, not everyone wants to hear from some fucking memeing communist with a shitty mullet and a pretty decent
You're
mustache.
using
know the
points
blonde
as
is
facts that
sexy,
have been
though.
That's why.
Are you really
invalidated.
using your time, Rob,
How
to
many
insult the
times?
dude?
Oh shit, is that
How
immutable
many times do you have to invoke invalidated arguments?
Mullets are
You're using-
immutable characteristics.
Right,
yes.
right. Yeah, oh, my bad. Sorry for violating the rules there.
I'm gonna
The other
quote
thing I'll
you
say is
on
this,
that.
something that people don't talk about when they say, well, we should just make education higher ed free. There are options right now for higher ed that are near free through certain programs that you could do. But let's say we did that. Let's say all bachelor degrees now will be free to accomplish. All you're going to do is make people spend 4 more years not going into the workforce. And by the way, our higher ed system sucks anyways. I don't even care if it collapses to the ground. It's a bunch of indoctrination bullshit. The product has become increasingly expensive year after year after year, and the quality of the product has declined. Inevitably, what we'll see is we'll see individual tutors that can teach people how to pass tests to be able to do jobs like being lawyers, doctors, engineers, other things like that. And you won't have to go take your gender studies, anthropology courses just so you could get your engineering degree. But nonetheless, what you'll see is if you make all of these 4-year universities free, it'll just be the new high school. And so that degree will mean nothing. And so you'll have to get a master's degree to separate yourself out from the field
This
of
is
all
not
the
true,
people that
actually.
just went and
Well,
got that. It is,
This is a pretty
it is
common
objectively
talking. No, this is
untrue.
this
I'd
is a
agree.
talking. This is
Well,
a common talking
what-
point similar to the
Hunter.
public school argument. But having a baseline level of college education will not cheapen the overall degree,
Sure.
so long as it's proven that
It
you have a
already
degree
is-
in that
it's already
profession.
happened.
Absolutely would,
But-
Hunter. What are you
actually-
talking about?
actually, and
How
it's-
would the value of a bachelor's degree not go down if more people
Because
were able
it's
to get a
free
bachelor's
to enter.
degree?
No. It's free to enter the college, but it doesn't mean you're just getting a bachelor's degree for free. You still have to work for it. You still have to make it through all the necessary trainings to actually obtain that
Gotta go
degree.
fast.
Hunter,
seems
would
true,
the
right?
amount
The
of
same
people
true.
with bachelor's degrees in the workforce go up or down?
How are you qualifying
Probably
value?
up, but so
What is the
what?
value
That's
of a
good. That means there's
bachelor
more
degree?
people that are
So
certified
what?
to
You're
work.
competing with other people within your like wage bracket for those jobs. So it's like, and for higher wages. So obviously you're going to have to separate yourself.
Yeah, you can
somehow,
separate
and a lot of
yourself
people
via
sep-
experience. You can separate yourself in a
Education
lot
is
of
one
other
of the
ways.
That's
best ways
like
But
to
take
do
up an
so.
extracurricular, bro.
you can do an
Like,
extra
that's
thing. You
how
can
you
do yeah,
separate
exactly. You can do extracurricular. There's all sorts of
Nice.
things
This
that you
is
can do
why
outside
do
of.
people go to college now? Why do people go get a bachelor's degree now?
Listen,
not
half
understand-
baked. You can take up a half baked. You can take up an extracurricular like women's swimming.
Yeah.
You'll dominate and you'll be fantastic.
Like
right?
women's
Like, the
sports,
point-
right,
they're
guys?
stupid.
Right?
Hey,
It's
Rob,
Women's
can you
sports,
tell me?
guys,
I would
right?
just like
really
really
say-
quick from Rob.
Right?
I
That's
really
the
quick.
punchline, right?
Okay.
The punchline, right?
Okay.
Rob,
Let's
Chase,
reel it.
trans
Okay,
femme.
guys.
Chris, trans femme,
Okay,
swimmer,
okay,
Rob.
wait, please.
I want to ask please.
I can't yell. Okay, let's reel it in a bit. Get it back on course, okay? Next, okay, so Hunter Avalon, you were having an engagement with Jeb and Rob here. I want you guys to finish that. I have Jeb written down. Oh, not Jeb and Rob. It was Half Baked Takes and Jeb. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean Half Baked Jakes and Rob. Sorry, I get them all confused. I have Jeb's name written down. Okay. So
Admittedly, it's off subject. I just really was curious what Rob thought about
Gappy.
how the higher education was somehow indoctrination, and is he arriving at that conclusion solely because as people become more educated, they're more likely to become more liberal?
True.
No, we could see, you could look at something like Heterodox Academy, Jonathan Haidt, who's a leftist, that's talked about since the advent of social media around about the time of 2004, not only has administrators, which by the way have been growing at 10 times the rate of actual educators, become increasingly extreme left wing, but you also see it with educators, and that we're actually seeing all sorts of, it used to be a free marketplace of ideas, but now more and more, even left wing students are saying they're afraid to actually voice their opinions because they're afraid they'll be canceled because of the
This is
culture.
based on people saying stuff.
Real quick, I have to talk fast because everyone wants to interrupt me the whole time. So I'll say this real quick too.
Indoctrination.
Empirically, I'll be able to prove, I could prove that the degree would become worth less because as soon as the government started to get involved in guaranteeing loans, which meant universities and college, this, I know that a lot of people on the left won't want to hear this, but it wasn't designed for everyone to go to, right? That doesn't mean that some of the greatest Americans I know are people that didn't go to college and they're productive and they're awesome and they're happy and they're making decent money and they don't have debts, right? College was never designed for everyone. It was supposed to separate people out. It was it was supposed to be designed for people that were at least of a certain education level and intellect to be able to go into a field to require specialization.
But if it costs money, then you're separate.
Please, Hunter, let me finish.
I got to cut in here because you're isolating this based on wealth.
If you let me finish, right?
I said here patiently
let everyone finish their points. I did, right? So what happens is, let me get back to where I was going. So what happens is when the government got involved in guaranteeing student loans, that encouraged a bunch of people that otherwise maybe would have went into the workforce to go and get degrees, which ended up inflating the amount of degrees that don't lead to people getting jobs that are productive in the country. And so the value of a bachelor degree has declined in two ways since the government's got involved. One, your ability to get paid and money and a job for that degree, the symbolic nature of it. But second, the actual education that you're getting. That's also declined, as we can see when you look at United States, for example, education levels, they've been declining versus people around the world for some time now. So in both of those ways, we could see the government getting involved devalued that education. And if we made it totally free, it would continue to devalue the bachelor degree even more.
It's just a sheer numbers game. If the thing that separates most people by like wage category is education acquired. And when we start talking about forgiving these loans, like you're going to end up just forgiving the debts on the most well-off in society.
Well, to clarify, we're talking here about really quickly. We're talking about here. We're not talking about forgiving the loans in this context. We're talking about college or having a public option that is available for free. So I don't understand how you're saying this would cheapen it or this would set it up so that everybody has a loan. It shouldn't be based on your wealth. There are plenty of very smart people that might not have the financial means to obtain that degree. Wouldn't we want those people to still be able to get a degree?
No, I see what you're saying, but what I'm saying is when you have more degree holders in a workforce, you're ultimately going to have less jobs. You're going to have less jobs that like higher income jobs for those bachelor's degrees to fill. And then those bachelor's degrees are going to end up going and working in fucking service industry or retail rather than going and getting executive positions or managerial positions.
Having a more productive society altogether is going to benefit the economy even more so, right? Having people that are well-educated is really crucial.
But most people go to college to earn more money. Hunter, most people go to college.
And they shouldn't be, yes, they do, but they shouldn't be kept from there if they don't have the financial means in the first place to go.
Hunter, let's test your supposition here. So you say that a more educated society will be, you say a more educated society would be better, and so that's why we should have free 4-year universities. Why stop at 4 years? Why not 8? Why not 12? Wouldn't that be a more educated society that would be better?
You mean medical school and like
Sure,
a law
free
school?
medical school. And let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond doctorates. Let's put a degree, a tier above that. You need to go for 24 years. Let's have free
So
for
I
that
like
too.
the
Wouldn't
fact
that
that
be more
Rob has
education?
no argument, so he has to somehow go down this slippery slope of why don't we make it so everybody gets free car insurance too? Lol. That's not what we're talking about. Okay, we're talking about. Hold on, stop.
No,
We're
you
talking.
don't have a
we're
response.
still talking
Yes,
about we're still talking about
I have a
degrees. We're still
response, but I
talking
didn't get a
about
chance to actually
education.
cut in because you keep talking.
Okay.
So first and foremost, I'm not advocating for
on.
free 24-year college. Of course, after a while, that's going to have
Why?
cost, but because that would probably not be financially attainable even for the government to finance. So if we're talking about just the bare minimum of a 4-year degree, that is going to ultimately lead to a more educated society. And if people want to pursue a further degree, yes, they can probably use the money obtained from whatever job they got with the bachelor's degree to then finance their higher education. Also, just to be clear, I'm not advocating for the abolishment of private education. There should just be a public option alongside it. That's it.
I also agree
real
that
quick,
we
the
were sold a
question
bill of
was
goods.
designed-
I also
No,
agree that we were
Wait,
sold a bill of
stop,
goods.
stop. Jesus, I put too many I
Let me go,
put
let me
too
go,
many
let me go.
talkers on the talking panel. It's the list. I want to go down the list a little bit, because it's Jeb, Gappy, Mythic, then Half Baked Takes, in that order. Cam, did you just raise your hand? No, okay.
No, I wanted
Mythic-
to say something a while ago,
here's
but I
something
wasn't
on
able
the
to get it in.
Okay.
But can I say something real quick? Why the fuck do people talk to their audience while we're streaming instead of listening politely to what people are saying? I might be a fucking asshole, but I'm sitting here
You're
listening.
recycling
Would you assholes
points from
stop
60
talking
years
to your
ago. Why
fucking
listen
audience
to
and
it?
listen?
We
You're
heard
fucking
the first
worthless
time when it
pricks.
was wrong.
Guys,
Why
let's
listen to it
can we,
again?
let's reel it
Yeah,
back in. Okay, we
yeah,
can,
yeah,
hold on.
yeah,
Can we
hold on.
not? Let's.
We can't help it if
Fucking
Rob is
pathetic.
triggered. Okay, let's just give him a break.
Okay.
Do you need to go back to?
feeling
I'm pointing out the
free.
bad
Do you need to go back to your safe
fucking
space,
lefties
Rob?
have.
Do you need to go back to your
No,
safe
I don't
space,
need
buddy?
a safe space, Hunter.
Put a
Wait.
second
I'll
flag
just
up.
become a
Put a
liberal
second
like you
flag
to
up.
grant,
Okay,
right?
no, I'm
Hey,
done,
everyone,
I'm
I'm a
done.
liberal now.
Yeah.
Send me money like Hunter.
So
Guys,
many
you're
feelings.
done.
Wait, hold on, really
Guys.
quickly. Wait. I need to
Right there,
have this
buddy.
engagement really quickly with Rob. Hey, Rob, can you define the word grifter and how I fit that definition, please? Just really
Everybody,
quick, just
okay?
really quickly,
This is
please.
what we're gonna do. I'm gonna unmute people when it's their time to talk. Okay? Wonderful. So we're gonna go. Jeb said they had something to say a while ago.
He
So,
can't do it, by the way.
but they said we moved on, so I'm gonna go there. So next is Gappy. We're just gonna do the list for about 5 or 6 minutes, okay? Because you guys wouldn't listen. Okay? Gappy. Wait, Jeb. Okay, you said you had something to say, but then moved on. Do you? Okay, Jeb.
Sorry, I don't remember saying. I'm sorry. So I think, the conversation has clearly moved past. What I'm saying is the conversation is no longer about should Biden forgive student loans. I think now we're on the solutions to keeping student loans from getting as high as they are now after the fact, if he does or if he doesn't. That seems to be what everybody's arguing about. What I do want to clarify is some of the things that we were talking about small businesses getting invested in and whatnot because of student loan forgiveness and yada, yada, yada. And I think this takes from both sides of the argument, which is that more than half of business owners in the United States don't have a bachelor's degree or higher. But what they cite isn't an inability to go to school. What they cite is better financial prospects outside of school with the time. So they'd rather not make no money for 4 years. They'd rather make money for those 4 years. So they go into things like sales and start their own business. So on one hand, I don't think we're going to have a bunch of people flooding the bachelor's degree market and completely devaluing the bachelor's degree because a lot of people are still just going to choose to make money with that time. But I also don't think we're going to see this massive small business investment if we do have free college. One of the things I also want to point out, because this is something that I was fed for a very long time, looking at the rankings for education systems internationally, on pretty much every list I'm seeing, the United States is number 1, with one list saying we're number 3, and we got there by being a market-based education system. So I think when we talk about just throwing out the market-based education system and completely revamping it with a different one, or kind of rigging the scales against private education by making like every state school free, we need to consider the quality that we have been able to reap from a market-based education system. Now, the extent to which I do think we can create a free option, which I don't even think it's to an extent, this is creating a free option, is allowing community colleges to give bachelor's degrees. We already have community colleges. They're already largely free. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to provide a bachelor's degree, and it would solve the problem while still allowing us to attack the issues from a credit and finance regulation aspect that lead to a 350% outpacing of tuition cost by student debt. So I don't think we need to largely make public or nationalize the United States education system. I think just allowing community colleges to give bachelor's degrees would be more than enough, because we don't want to ditch the market-based education system that's given us what the quality that we have now.
Okay, so I've unmuted everybody, but I'm hoping that we can not devolve into that again when I'm trying to talk and to moderate and everybody's just yelling over each other. So I'm putting a firm line down that if you talk over me at any point going forward, right, for like anything that I think is just blatantly ignoring me, I'm just gonna mute you, right? I'm putting that firm line down right now, okay? Because that just got way out of control too fast. Gappy, you were next on the list.
Thanks. I just want to correct a few things. The first thing that I think Rob brought up was that American universities are shit. This is just patently not true. I don't think any other country, in terms of international students trying to come into our country in order to go to our universities, I don't think any other country has similar demand. Even for like everyone, like École Polytechnique in France, there are like 10 top tier universities specializing in a specific field or in an industry or in a degree in America. So to say that like American universities and higher education just fails, it's completely awful, doesn't actually train people for jobs, is just objectively not true. The demand is absolutely insane. Another implementation idea that was brought up was making community colleges 4 years. There's a huge difference in the amount of income you make with an associate's degree versus a bachelor's degree. I mean, when you look at a lot of these job postings, they're asking for bachelor's or not associates, right? So to say that we can just make community college give 4 years and just make that free isn't actually as easy as it sounds, because implementing those upper level courses when there's so many different fields of specialization, that's the difficult and the tougher part of implementing a college curriculum. A general thing that came up generally during this entire thing is that a lot of people are just arguing about like the concept of whether we should or shouldn't have people going to college rather than talking about the issues of implementation. I think ultimately this entire issue of college debt forgiveness comes down to how we implement these policies, which isn't as sexy as just yelling like we should forgive all student debt, or, you know, people should just stop, you know, not be stupid as 18-year-olds and just sign on to all the debt and just, you know what they're doing. I think a good example of like an issue with some of the implementations that came up was just citing Keynesian economics and saying that, you know, we'll just give them more money and they can spend it on other issues. We have to also consider where that money's actually going to. If it's just going to people who are already on like the top 5% or 10% in income, I'm not really sure that's exactly what we want to do. I don't think we would be saying that, oh, well, it's Keynesian economics if we give Jeff Bezos $1 million tax break and say, you know what, he can spend that money, it's going to have a multiplier effect on the economy.
You're talking about means testing, yes, but the problem is with what you're saying is it costs more money to police it. The bureaucracy that you would create through doing means testing has the perverse effect of costing more than just universalizing the aid and then taxing, because you already have a mechanism to tax progressively through the IRS.
The bureaucracy. You could make these simple application processes. Like, you don't have to make it.
There's been study after study sociologically. I can link the PDFs. They're too long for you to get into now, but trust me when I say that means testing has been proved sociologically to cost more to distribute benefits to the society. It's
that may be true in like with certain policies, but with this specifically, it could be done in a relatively manner. You wouldn't have a relatively easy manner, and you could just do it through the Department of Education, which is already established. We don't have to like establish a new fucking like bureaucratic office to take care of this.
I mean,
wait till the people who wrote those white papers get a hold of your anecdote.
Wait. Yeah, there we go. See, I've installed fear in the people. I am a mini tyrant. Okay. Okay, so continue, please, Mythic. Finish your point. Then I want to go to the rest of the people that want to talk. I'm gonna go. I think Gappy wanted to respond. Who else wanted to respond to that?
Oh, not respond, no.
I'll throw it to Rob. Then Jeb already went, so I think I want to get through the list first. Like half baked. So Mythic.
Yeah, he just said more of the same. Yes, no, means testing has been shown sociologically in the distribution of Social Security and other things, and specifically in the college when they do cursory stuff as far as how to eliminate the debt and what to do in the economic implications of reducing and or canceling student debt. They showed, I just read an abstract today that talked about doing it the Federal Reserve level and not creating bureaucracy through which it would necessitate people to be there 24/7, paperwork, committees, figuring out what to do, whatever. It's literally cheaper just to universalize the relief relief and then tax it out, which is already, and you already effectively have a mechanism to recoup that through the taxation progressively. It's literally a non-issue. But the problem is that the means testing is used as a proxy for people to argue against a thing that they just fundamentally don't want because they're either invested in it or just don't like the idea or think that there's other moral harm, and they invoke economics but it doesn't work in this case.
Happy?
Two things. If means testing is, according to the study, like more expensive than the actual original bureaucracy itself, then we actually have to come into call to question as to whether or not it's even worth canceling student debt. If means testing would, in order to make sure that it actually, is a progressive policy, ends up costing more than what we actually would like, and not means testing it might result in us predominantly giving forgiveness and predominantly giving more income and wealth to people who are already well off, right? The other thing I want to point out is that if we're just reading an abstract and we're not reading the whole study, I'm not really sure we should really be discussing that type of stuff. It doesn't really matter what an abstract say if the study is ran like complete shit.
Excuse me, I misspoke. What I was talking about is I jumped to the part that talked about literally the mechanism through which the federal government would do that and why and a separate study talking about why means testing is perverse.
Yeah, I think, but the problem is I don't care about any of this anyway because I don't believe.
Then
that
why are you
we should
here?
Cancel the student debt. No, I'm saying that I don't care about means testing because I don't think that we should cancel the student debt. But if you're talking about using means testing as an avenue to canceling some people's student debt, I don't see, I think there are ways to make means testing less expensive, like almost the same way that we distributed COVID relief,
yeah, it was universal.
If you had
we universalized that. You're exactly right. We didn't say you're using an example of something that was given away to everybody at no cost, and then saying we could use something like means testing like that. You're exactly right. If the means testing you want is universally giving everybody who wants a COVID shot, then we should 100% do that. I agree.
So I'll finish what I was saying now. I'll finish what I was saying real quick.
I wanted Cam to respond to that. That was right.
So what you can do, and I don't even care about what you just said because you didn't even let me finish, and you were attacking an argument that I wasn't even making. So what I was saying is that you can make the people do the work for you, right? So
what?
Or I guess you could
show me how that. Tell me how that works.
You could have people apply to have their student debt forgiven, and then they could fill out the little circles that say what their income bracket is. Sure, I guess you'd have to have some testing,
you have to test their income to make sure they're telling the truth.
Yeah, right.
Head Start, SNAPs, welfare, every benefit program, they've studied this, and there is a fucking heavy cost with the bureaucracy revolved to fucking giving that money out.
And it's higher than if you were to make it universal?
Yes. What do you mean?
Oh my fucking Christ.
Why do I have to tell you the free market fucking liberal how the fucking markets work? I don't understand. You fucking recoup it through taxing. What are you talking about?
Not in every
single benefits program. They analyzed every single benefits program in
Snaps,
this study?
Heads Up. There was a list of 15 programs that
do you know the author or something like that? I'm just curious. I love it.
I can link them in chat.
Thanks,
I can link them in chat. Yes.
Yeah, but not in every circumstance is it more expensive to means test than to make it universal. But Mythic is
You're
largely
saying that
right.
apropos of nothing. You're saying that apropos of nothing, by the way.
Mythic, I'm with you. Mythic is largely right that means testing is expensive, and that is why conservatives rail against. I mean, as conservatives, we have railed against administrative bloat for decades now. I mean, when we say administrative bloat, we mean the cost of things like means testing and things like that. So, but I also agree with Gappy that at a certain point, if it becomes so expensive to both make it universal and to means test, if both of those are so expensive, then that's where I agree. We do need to analyze if it's even fiscally worth it to forgive the student debt in the first place.
Nobody said it was expensive to make it universal. Through MMT, the government creates, they're saying the military, the government does not use taxable, government does not tax and spend. That's not what they do. They create money and spend it and then absorb the inflation, the money in equity, the excessive money that would lead to inflation. They reuptake it through taxation. That's just how basic economics work since the mid 80s. That's just basically what they do. So it's not, the free lunch problem is literally.
It'll be Rob.
Okay.
I want to throw it to Rob.
This is exactly the argument, and we've heard big left-wing communist socialists say this for a long time. Yes, bureaucracy is expensive, means testing is expensive. That's Mythic. I know it's tough, try to listen to someone else talk, or you could go ahead and talk to your audience while I'm talking if you need to. Why are you here anyways? But so we heard them talk about this.
I'm here to fucking literally give pushback on fucking harebrained ideas. Like what is your argument here? You think MMT is a fucking communist argument? What the fuck kind of capitalist are you? What the fuck are you talking about? What are you doing here if you don't know the basic terminology?
Okay.
Well, you wouldn't know because you don't listen to anyone. You constantly interrupt.
You reiterate and you gish
I like the
gallop.
fact that somebody else is here to gish gallop Rob. It's actually kind of fun to watch.
You're going through an ancillary conversation and you're not addressing the underlying points. And you're literally calling MMT a communist trope.
You haven't heard.
What
You haven't heard what I have to say.
Drop the non sequitur.
I heard it the first time. I heard it when the first time when it was Thatcherism and the second time when it was Reaganomics.
This is a great show, Dylan. This guy's a great guest here, right?
Thank you.
If only he lived up to his fucking haircut.
Third time winner. Third time winner. Let's go.
The ad hoc really helped you out.
Champion.
Okay. So, to be fair, Rob, you did bait him with insults, but I do agree he shouldn't be interrupted.
He deserves
so
it.
You can.
He's fucking insulted everyone. He deserves it. He's a big boy.
Tell him he can't hold
Wait. Rob, please finish.
Sure. So this is what we heard, like, oh, it's too expensive to means test, so we just need to give the government total control of all of this stuff, and we'll reabsorb it through inflation and taxation. Right. So when you're paying more at the pump and shit right now because of these big government programs and even more government control, remember, they say, don't worry, we'll fix it all, and we'll absorb it through inflation. And then, so that we could have a bunch of people that were predominantly better off in the first place if they were probably likely to go to college. The poor and working class people will now, through inflation, be able to pay more. But that's okay because the communists will say, well, that's okay. We should have non-private property and things like that. Anyways, the government should own the total means of production. Don't worry, big government will take care of you. No thanks. I've seen what big government's capable of when they do what they do now, which is even less egregious than what communism will be. So what you hear when people are like, literally, he's making an argument. Hunter, like, do you guys have like a literal fucking like mental problem?
I think you have a mental illness because you're literally equating communism and market socialism.
Let you all finish. I sit here patiently and let you fuckers finish every time. Okay?
You talk so long and say so little. You talk so long and say so little.
Well, that's Rob's MO, dude.
Okay. I've said 3 times to let him finish. If I think he goes too long, I'll jump in. The next person to interrupt Rob is going to get a 30-minute timeout. So really think if you want that, okay? Really, like think it real hard, okay? Think it real hard, okay? Rob.
Okay, so I just wanted to respond to Gappy real quick, and then I'll finish on that point. To Gappy, he said, when I said U.S. universities were no good, I don't mean vis-a-vis other universities necessarily. The education system at the primary and K-12 level is beginning worse vis-a-vis the rest of the world. But when I say it's bad at the university level, less and less people are using the degrees they graduate with in the actual job they end up getting. And I think just general education and competency is going down because there's more of a breadth of discussion instead of focused on specific things. So the degrees and the education is getting worse. When we talked about bureaucratic means testing being bad, this is the reason why government bureaucracy in general is bad, which is why we should protect communism. And I was going to say, like, well, this SNAP benefits, would you get rid of them? Would you get rid of Head Start? It appears the answer is yes. Mythic would say to get rid of those things. It will be a shit show. How would we have a system where SNAP benefits weren't means tested? Like, even if you ever, I guess it would be pure communism. That's the only, or for example, child tax credits or things like that, or programs designed specifically for people with children, WIC. Well, we can't means test for WIC. So if Hunter says, I have another baby, well, we have to send him WIC because we can't means test. This is nonsense. There has to be means testing, and there are ways to make it less affordable. And I would like to read the studies that say that it would be cheaper to just give everyone money than to means test. It's nonsense.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it to Mythic because I want Mythic to respond because Mythic's very passionate about this. And Hunter, we're going to have that. Jem, I'm going to write your name down. And Halfbake takes your next on the list. And then it's Maddie. Then
you can
just skip you?
You can just skip me. Yeah, I was just going to talk to Rob about something kind of, again, irrelevant that he said, but go ahead.
Okay, Mythic?
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. There is mean testing in all those heads-up programs. They literally use a metric which is called the the official poverty measure OPM, which is used where they take what the basic baseline, what it costs for you not to starve, and then times it by 3, and they use means testing to dictate whether people get that as far as TAMF benefits, as far as SNAPs, which is food stamps, direct money aid. There's other things. There's of course means testing and all those things. And the studies that I linked in the chat, which you will not read, I'm sure, but the studies that I linked, which you will not read, shows the perversity of trying to means test when you could just basically save money and get the money to where you actually need. An anecdote is in Texas, I believe that they attributed like something like $300 million, I forget exactly anecdotally, but they ended up only distributing 10%. Why? Because 90% of the money was gate kept through the means testing mechanism, which prevented them from distributing the money as was intended in the spirit of the bill. So the means testing is literally the problem. The non-universal nature of these programs is the problem. It's literally cheap it's free effectively for the government to do it, as long as they're doing things which they understand in the long term will incentivize the economy so as to pay for themselves, and then they just implement a progressive tax and recoup it on the end. It's literally as simple as that. It's modern monetary theory. Everything else is weird seething cope. I literally don't understand, but I went ahead and linked those in the chat if you want to go ahead and not read them later.
Can I respond really quickly to that?
Sure. I think Rob has a right of way there since it was a response to Rob, but if he wanted to respond, I think he would have jumped at it, so I'm going to throw it again.
I looked at these 2 studies or whatever, and you mentioned that they looked at SNAP in like 15 different programs. I just control F SNAP in both of them. Neither of them, which is one about the potential savings to Social Security from means testing, and the other one, which is about student debt cancellation. Neither of them bring up SNAP or these 15 other programs. They just talk about Social Security and Medicare. And if that wasn't bad enough, they also bring. Oh, there's a third one. Okay, well, if that wasn't bad enough, they bring up Social Security and the issues of means testing Social Security, and they say that if we were to means test Social Security, it would substantially increase the operating cost, and it would eliminate most, if not all, of the savings from a plausible means test. So while it would increase the cost, it's not like that we're losing money as a result. We save money by means testing, but we also increase the cost by means testing. So it eliminates most of the savings, if not all of it. It's not going to increase the cost at a cost like the taxpayer or anything like that, at least from whatever you're bringing up here. I just find it really frustrating when we're bringing up like random studies that, like, frankly, I don't think you've read.
I read the operative parts. I don't know. I'll have to review. I don't know what section you're reading from, number 1. But again, you're referencing
there's 0 results.
There was a third one. I'll find it. I did a lot of pre. I'm sorry. I should have notated my sources better. I'm sorry about that. However, I will say this. Again, you're doing a callback to the tax recoupment, or excuse me, of the taxpayer recoupment. Taxpayers' money do not pay for programs like this. That's literally not how the government literally creates money out of thin air. Not to use a Jekyll Island Federal Reserve fucking trope, but literally under MMT, they create the money they need to spend and then recoup it through taxation. So to control inflation. So that by and large, I don't really see what you're saying, but I'll go ahead and give this another cursory scan.
Well, I'm not saying.
Can I just respond?
That said, like, all it does is just neutralize the savings.
Yeah, if I could,
Rob, I'll let you respond
quick.
if you can make it like 10 to 15 seconds because we have other people who have been waiting for a while. 15 seconds max. Okay, I will literally.
Wouldn't a progressive tax also be means testing? That's it. That's my question.
No, that's not what means testing means.
No, when you're reporting your own, because it's the reporting is part of the tax form. That's like a soup. There's no administrative cost to that. You're literally inputting.
That's not true. The administrative cost is the IRS. That's why we recently had to hire far more IRS people. The IRS costs tons of money. If it was just a universal flat tax, wouldn't that be much cheaper? We wouldn't have all that means testing and bureaucracy. The same is true.
You still need to know the income in order to do a flat tax, though. The reason why it's not more expensive to do a progressive tax rate, and I agree with you on the flat tax, but the reason why it's not more expensive to means test in that regard is because even with the flat tax, I have to report my total income. With the progressive tax, I have to report my total income, and then they change my percentage rate based on that income. There's no additional information they're gathering.
But the reason means testing would be expensive in programs like SNAP and things like that, it's the same thing. You still have to self-report for everything to be able to get these things. It's that you have to meet certain criteria to get benefits. With the progressive tax bracket, it's not just, yes, with the flat tax, everyone has to report and then gets a percentage of what they would pay as the tax. But you need a special bureaucracy to determine what those levels will be. And that bureaucracy is why means testing would be expensive. So the same would be true. It will be more expensive to have a progressive tax bracket for the same reasons. But I'm assuming assuming that most of the left-wingers would support progressive tax bracket because they would say, well, you would be able to tax them more and get more benefit out of, yes, there will be an increased cost in the bureaucracy by having this means testing, but it would be worth it because we're able to tax them more. Same thing could
what
be
Mythic
said
is
of,
saying, hold on, what Mythic is saying is in his world, you don't have to report your income at all to get your loans forgiven, whereas with taxes, you have to report your income either way. I think that's where the difference would be there. I'm trying to strengthen your argument by better informing
in
it.
a universalized program, under a universalized modality, yeah, there was no criteria. The only criteria would then be the cognitive limitations of the potential people applicants for the college. Right, and so it wouldn't be financial, which is basically one of the litmus tests. They sort of with the FAFSA, with the Pell Grants and everything else, they have to sort of not only pinch the fat on you to see how much meat is on your bones, but also see how much your parents have, just so they know like whether you're worthy of going in there.
Okay, so I'm going to move over to the list. There's 3 people who've been waiting for a very long time. Halfbake Takes, Maddie, and Jeb's also on the list, but he's talked a little bit here, but I'll keep him on the list. Halfbake Takes.
Yeah, it just seems like, again, I know you're going to just tell me that making it universal is somehow is more efficient than means testing, Mythic, but going back to just wiping these loans away, it just seems like all you're helping is the most privileged and the most well-off in society as is. If you go to school and graduate and you take out loans along the way, you graduate, you're on track to pay those loans off. The people that end up getting fucked and add a ton of have a majority of this debt and typically have no ability to pay it off, are the ones that take out loans and then don't graduate. And those are the ones I have sympathy for, and those are the ones I do want to reach out to, and those are the ones I think we can find ways to simplify the bureaucratic process and maybe alleviate their student loan debt, like we do with programs like the federal workers program, and then they have a frontline healthcare worker one. So if you work in certain industries for long enough, you'll get it paid off. And then a lot of times now companies are
I seriously hope we go to the next subject soon, guys.
As like a
I
benefit.
really hope that we go
an
to the Bible
incentive,
topic next.
To get
That's the one I'm
going to
be way better at.
Which I
Let's
think
be
we
honest.
should probably encourage.
I don't really
companies
care
to
that
do
much about
more
this
of,
thing.
And
This
it
topic, I
probably
mean,
would
sorry.
work out considering we have a labor shortage.
Okay, next is Maddie.
So it made me happy to hear Halfbake Takes to talk about how you don't want to help the wealthy elite, and I'm encouraged to hear that, because unfortunately the way our system is structured right now, we are making college really only accessible to those who have the financial means to pay for tuition. And that usually means that they came from wealthy families. Now, why we have a robust and prestigious upper academic system right now in the United States is because for a long time, this was the vehicle that people could use, that Americans could use to have upward mobility in society. It was something that was the great equalizer, where people could come from any background, but if you worked hard and did well, no, I'm not done, you can wait, then you could make a living for yourself and do well. Here's the problem. We're seeing people that are the only people that are able to actually go to college or to go to good institutions that then have a higher propensity of leading to high paying jobs are people that come from wealthier backgrounds. So I'm just curious why all the conservatives here want to reserve college as simply something for rich kids and wealthy kids. Why wouldn't you want to give kids who come from impoverished backgrounds, or backgrounds where maybe they don't have the financial means to pay for college, why wouldn't you want it to be accessible for them without making them beholden to 30 years
This is wholeheartedly untrue.
So,
I got offered more money in student loans because I was fucking poor. Because I was poor, they offered me more money.
That's really great anecdotal evidence.
What do you mean anecdotal? That's the standard. What are you talking about, Maddie? That's the
access
fucking
to
standard.
larger loans
Wait.
because of additional need.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
what we're
this-
saying. It's
that's
not
what
only
I-
accessible
that's
to
my
rich
fucking
kids.
point. Thank you,
My
Mythic.
impoverished kid who signed up for college as an individual without parents here. Yeah, the government will shell out tons and tons of money to you.
They will
both
give
in,
me
both
whatever
in
I
free
want.
aid and
You're saying
also
for
in
rich kids,
subsidized
all the
and
rich
unsubsidized
kids can just
loans.
go to
The
free
rich kids
wherever
don't
they
need
want.
loans,
And so
Maddie.
can
They
can
don't need
unwealthy
loans.
No, but I'm saying, is
Rich
that what you're
kids don't
saying?
need
Is that
fucking
in
loans.
America
Wait,
right
hold
now,
on, hold
this is
on,
this
hold
is
on.
very
no,
much
no,
why.
no,
kid
no,
go anywhere?
no, what? Okay, so I want. Okay, I'm gonna have Maddie respond to that. Okay, and then I'm gonna be looking at wrapping up this topic in a second. But everybody's raising their hands. Could most of your things be used for ending statements?
Sure.
Or do you? Okay,
Yeah.
just we're looking
Yeah.
because we're going on the hour-and-a half mark. So I just want to make sure we have time for all the other topics. So we're good.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
just gonna
looping.
finish the people on the list, which is Maddie's gonna finish the statement. Then we're gonna have probably a little bit of response to that. Then we're gonna go to Jeb, who's on the list, and Gappy. Gappy somehow got on the list. Lucky Gapster. Maddie.
Yeah. So I guess I'm curious now. So, and great. Listen, if that is true, I am very happy that you guys were able to get the financial aid that you needed to go to college. That's fantastic. But here's the thing. I'm just wondering, like, by that anecdotal evidence, are you then suggesting that any kid who lives either below the poverty line or in a family where they just don't have $100,000 saved up and put away in an account, are you saying that any kid anywhere can go to college for free because of the government to a 4-year institution? Like, is that the argument you're making? You're saying, oh no, everything people are saying isn't actually true. You guys can go to college for free anywhere. Is
You won't
that
go for free.
that
You'll
your
incur
argument?
debt, but you'll be able to go.
You also believe in unicorns? Like, are you serious?
No, it's a fact that regardless of like your economic standing, your financial situation, college is accessible to you. You're not going to go for free. You'll incur debt, but you can go. I didn't have any income. I didn't have a job. I didn't have parents supporting me. I was unable to get a cosigner for a private loan. I was still able to go to college. I got plenty of aid and grants from the federal government. I got plenty. I took out federal loans, which, like I've said before, I have a quarrel with the government continuing to shell out infinite amounts of money to colleges, allowing them to raise their tuitions. But it's absolutely possible, and it's absolutely accessible. I think that we need like reform.
What's happening is that that's not the case for everyone, especially people who have parents.
That's it. No, that's the case.
State school, there's a great
Like,
chance you're
people,
gonna get accepted
people have
regardless of your
parents that don't make enough when they make too much to qualify them for like
Wait.
carte blanche loans, but
Did you
they
miss the
don't.
part where I didn't have parents? Like,
I
or-
know, I fucking heard you, and I'm saying
Oh,
I'm
cool.
glad that you were able to go and do that. But like, I'm also saying,
But
okay,
if I can do it, then
I had
everybody else can do it as well.
I had poor
That's not
parents.
true.
It's far more common in another scenario. There are people where their parents make too much money for them to qualify for a lot of those low income loans, but they don't make enough money to actually have been able to save for college. So those kids are like, okay, well, I can basically be roped in to 30 years of loans where I'm paying hundreds of dollars a month. I'm not going to be able to start a business. I don't know if I'll be able to have kids or buy a house, but that's what I'm going to have to do.
They think it's going to be financially.
Be able to compete on the job market. Like, that is what I'm saying.
Well, if it's going to pay off, then
upward mobility in this country has plummeted over the last 30 years, and the student loan crisis is a massive factor.
Maddie, I would
Maddie,
agree with
if I
what you
can
said
real quick,
earlier about the cap on interest. Like, I don't think that we've established that the majority of debt comes from federal loans, and I don't think there's any reason for the federal government to be charging more in interest than like the inflation rate, right? So like, we should try to match the interest rate pretty close to inflation at the very least. Otherwise, the government's just stealing money from people that have taken out loans, and there's no like valid incentive for that other than like, oh, the government's saying like, oh, we're going to make people pay back their student loan quicker. But if that student loan or student debt doubles, then they're not going to pay it back at all, and the government's losing money. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I would agree with you there, but I would disagree with you when you say that college is only accessible to the wealthy, because it's just not true.
How do you match an interest? How do you match an interest rate?
We
How do
already
you
had
match
a
an
system.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but we've got 7 minutes before the hour-and-a-half mark. I just need to ask Rob, is it something you can say for the ending statements at all?
Yeah, sure. I can say it, no problem.
Okay, I just have 2 people unless we got to get through them. Jeb?
I can make mine a closing statement too if you want to wrap it up.
Can we
Gappy,
go
is
to the
that the same
Bible
thing?
subject next?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we're going to do ending statements. Wonderful. I appreciate the cooperation from everybody. You will all not be put in the gulag today. Maybe tomorrow, Pol Pot Dylan arc. So we're going to throw it over to Cam Higby for the first ending statement.
Oh boy. Okay, so yeah, like I said, college is absolutely accessible to poor, impoverished people. I, again, left my parents when I was 18 years old, had essentially no financial connection to them whatsoever. I wasn't dependent on their taxes. I had no support from them. I was unable to get a cosigner. I still went to college, and I only have like 10 grand in student debt, which is a lot of money, but it's doable, right? I'll be able to pay it off. It's not too much. You're going to incur debt. You're not going to go for free, but you'll be able to go and you'll be able to get your education. I guess I'll just, while I'm wrapping up, I'll address real quick a question that Mythic asked. How can you like match the interest rates to like inflation? So obviously inflation is constantly changing. However, like I guess you can do like you can look at averages. You're never going to get it exactly, and I guess have it like match long-term interest rates. But you can try to like I guess estimate or project what the interest rates might look like. Might be a little tricky, but whatever. I think there should be a cap, and we shouldn't be charging like ridiculous interest rates, especially on loans from the federal government. Again, I think a lot of the problem stems from the federal government just shelling out unlimited money to institutions, them continuing to raise their prices. I think that we should probably regulate private loan firms and make sure that they're not doing the same thing, and that the people who actually need loans are the ones getting them. Yeah, I guess I'll just wrap it up there.
I'm gonna throw it over to Gappy.
I think it was just disappointing that a lot of people were just talking about random shit when it feels like, frankly, myself included, none of us are really qualified to talk about it. Just some highlights. Like we were talking about just only reading an abstract about student debt. We were talking about facts and about 15 different programs analyzed in studies that just didn't even mention the programs, about how like Keynesian economics means that we can just have a multiplier effect if we give out money, which when most of the money is being held by, or most of the debt is being held by people who are making more money, it's essentially tantamount to trickle down economics in terms of that argument. We heard that American universities are bad. We heard that somebody went from 14K to 80K with loans due to interest, right? Without acknowledging that that's probably due to private loans. Government shell infinite amounts of money to colleges. One university, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, had to take out insurance on Chinese international students because they rely so much on tuition because Illinois does not fund their universities that they had to take out insurance to do that. That's also just not true. I think it just really sucks that a lot of people are going into this conversation without really knowing a lot of information. I think the person who talked the best, besides myself, of course, is Hunter, because I think we can all take a step back from this debate and learn that, it's okay to say you don't know a lot of information or to try and just learn as you go, right? Rather than just instantly saying we shouldn't cancel any student debt or we should cancel all student debt. At the end of the day, college is an investment. People are forgetting that a bachelor degree makes you so much more money. And that's the difference between, say, forgiving all student loan debt versus forgiving debt from payday loans. There's a huge difference there because there is an actual return on your investment from college that we forget to consider in this entire conversation. It just sucks that we haven't really brought evidence from any of the sides brought up today. Any sort of evidence that actually supports their argument. Either we just made it up or it's out of context.
Okay, next I'm going to throw it over to Jeb, and I need to use the bathroom, but I think everybody gets the idea. Like Jeb, Hunter, then over to Half-Baked, Rob, Mythic, Maddie, that order. Okay? Wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think I issued quite a bit of evidence on my side as far as how credit reporting works, how credit qualifying works. I'm very experienced, expert level experience in how credit qualifying works. When you make it so there is no risk of bankruptcy or true default on a loan, you make it so they can inflate interest rates as high as they want. I think that as far as what Joe Biden should do with student debt, we're kind of split, but I think we're not split on this panel as far as student debt forgiveness, whether it happens or it doesn't, being enough here. The reason I think that we should eliminate federally backed student loans and the immunity to bankruptcy for student loans is I think we need a major market reset in our market education system. And while they're not following at the same pace that the debt is growing in tuition cost, they are obviously following that track. And we could get a better handle on tuition if people, again, weren't getting unlimited access to funds. I do think education is accessible largely to the people who need it, but I don't think the bachelor's degree has as great a return on it for everybody or for as many people as a lot of those of you think. I think the reason why people want student debt forgiven so bad is because they are finding that their bachelor's degree isn't returning as well as they thought it would. If it was returning as well as they thought it would, they wouldn't have any problem with their student loans. So I think we should be overhauling the federally backed student loan system, possibly getting rid of it, so that we can reset the market on school tuition, because our private education system has led to the #1 education system in the world. But I think everybody agrees that it needs a market reset so the tuitions can calm down and people can afford it. And that might include allowing community colleges to give bachelor degrees in a lot of circumstances. That would probably raise costs a little bit, but not nearly as much as completely nationalizing education in the United States.
Am I next? Okay. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, this is a really complicated issue. I think that when we're talking about Joe Biden canceling the student loan debts, there are pros and cons here, but at the end of the day, I am kind of on the side that the cons seem to be outweighing the pros. I do think that a much better long-term solution would be to nationalize education to a degree, not all the way. I mean, obviously not every form of education, but to have a public option when it comes to college, I think would be really beneficial for Americans and American society and the economy alike. So at the end of the day, yeah, I don't really have the strongest opinion on this this subject, but it was nice hearing everybody else's opinion too.
Yeah, so I apologize for falling apart at the beginning of this. Tend to get a little nervous when it comes to doing these things, so hopefully it won't happen on the closing statement. Basically, I just think it comes down to like financial literacy. All of these people that ended up signing these loans at 18 didn't really know what they were getting themselves into, and it spiraled into a situation now where we have a massive debt bubble, or like a massive bubble, and it's bound to burst. I don't know exactly what the ramifications are going to be, because like Jeb has brought up so many times, it's with the no ability to declare bankruptcy, it ends up just being a shit show for everyone. And then lastly, the ones that didn't graduate are the loudest voices on the other side. The ones that aren't that didn't graduate, don't have a degree, are now left without the benefits of I think it's increase of $1 million over the course of your career in earnings if you have a bachelor's degree versus having only a high school education. So I'll wrap it up there.
Okay, I think he said me next, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think the moral at the end of the day is that this would actually be designed to help people that generally are more well-to-do. Poor people that don't go to school will end up paying, and it will be paid primarily through inflation. There is no such thing as free anything. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as free government programs. It gets paid eventually to people. And we can see that the more of these massive government programs we have, such as during COVID, the more transfer of wealth from the poor and working class we've seen to the upper class. This would have the same effect. Just to address a couple specific points, Maddie was talking about only wealthy people would be able to go to college there. Maddie, if you go back to 1971, do you know what the average cost of tuition for a 4-year public education was? For 4 years, it was around $8,500. That was affordable for almost anyone in this country. Even if they weren't able to afford it, they would be able to get a part-time job to pay much of that, and they would be able to take out a private loan that would be far less burdensome going forward in the future than what we have in this current system. What changed? The U.S. government got involved in backing these loans. The more the government got involved in interfering in free markets, now it's becoming untenable. The solution isn't to forgive these loans and make poor people that didn't go to school pay more through taxation and through inflation. The solution is to get the government out more and stop having the government get involved, because that's what artificially raises the cost of these things. Gappy talks about, and I address Gappy's point about saying U.S. education. Just because U.S. education is deemed, a lot of people come here, I'm not disputing that. I'm saying the quality of the education and the value of a bachelor degree has declined significantly. He says that bachelor's degrees will get you more money than if you don't have it, but Jeb did a fantastic job of answering that, which is, okay, then I guess we don't need to forgive their student loans because they're doing more well off than the people that didn't go to school. So why wouldn't we be helping those people that didn't go to school that are apparently doing far poorer than those that got the bachelor's degree in the first place? There's other things that we didn't really get into that are worth talking about. I actually enjoyed the means test versus universal program. I think that would be a great debate topic. I'd love to hash that out more. I think that one of the things that could be hopeful is online university is going to make university cheaper in general if there isn't this sort of government interference, and that's because you won't need to pay for the sort of on-site infrastructure. You won't have to have people move. So if the government gets out of the way, there's a chance that this stuff could get cheaper anyways, which is good. And I did think it was funny watching left-wingers talk about more money in people's pockets is good, regulation and bureaucracy is bad. Right, you sound like free market people. Like I'm totally digging it. Last thing is, if we say that the flat tax would still not consider a means test thing, then fine, we could totally disband the IRS by having a sales tax only. Would everyone who's afraid of means testing because it's bureaucratic red tape that costs money be in favor purely of a sales tax? It'd be something I'd be interested in. And the last thing I'll say is just a stylistic thing. I love jabbing back and forth with people. I think it's fine. I don't mind if people insult me or whatever. That's all good. But seriously, anyone who's talking to their fucking audience like we see right now instead of listening is a sack of shit who doesn't respect anyone who's watching this, doesn't respect the rest of the people in the panelists, and doesn't respect Dylan's time. So y'all can go fuck off. I don't care what your politics are on it.
Mythics?
Okay, so anyways, whatever the fuck this piece of shit was just saying, it was fucking yada 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 yada. Jesus Christ, bro, how you gonna Gish Gallop yourself? Good lord. I've never heard, like, how you, like, is this a filibuster? Like, are you trying to go into hour 2? Anyways, yes, mean testing is fucking basically bad. It's perverse. Financial implications of Levy Institute, RE student loans, the economic authorities that these liberals on this panel will fucking agree with. Fine, our simulations show that student debt cancellation results in an increase in GDP, a decrease in average unemployment rate, and little to no inflationary pressure over the 10-year horizon, while interest rates increase only modestly. So it's a net good. Shut the fuck up about anything else. RE means testing, quote, or from the Center of Economic and Policy Research, quote, the cost of administering a means test could substantively add to the operating cost of the program. This would eliminate most, if not all, of the savings, meaning that any benefit that you would get with the savings is taken up by the means test. I don't know. That's rather unambiguous. I don't know. That's rather unambiguous. If your argument that this one thing that I found, which is not the end all and be all, and I understand it's incumbent upon me to find a better source citation. This is one of many things I read in the days going up to this. It shows at best the argument as it stands right here from the information we have at hand is that it's a net wash trying to do means testing anyways. By and large, if we can get back to commie shit, I think cultivating people's minds is good. Straddling young people with a lot of debt that they are unable to really wrap their head around the long-term implications of is bad, especially if they don't understand compound interest and how much that'll affect their ability to leverage or how much that'll impact their credit report when it comes to other implications that'll help them get their life going, i.e. car loans and houses and other stuff like that. Again, to default to an economic or capitalistic argument. But I would say that also one thing that didn't get addressed within this topic is how 70% of those in default are first-generation students and 40% come from low-income backgrounds, and the majority of people who default, 94% of them white borrowers repaid 94% of their loans, while black students have only recouped 5%. So unless you're making essentialist traits about the different peoples in America, there seems to be some systemic inequity that this social the student loans thing is predating upon. So in order to have a broader discussion about this, we need to fix the baseline inequity. We need to fix the mechanisms through which we subsidize or promote education. I say pulling these colleges out of the market and just using the magic of modern monetary theory that we use to fucking have the biggest military in the world that is not recouped by taxpayers. I think that we could do that same thing towards college education and reap the benefits long term.
And Maddie.
Cool. So I think it is a fantastic idea to give student loans. Ideally, that would be done with a universal wipe. But the number that's been shown to otherwise make the biggest impact is 50K. So I would love to see that happen. It's economically smart. It prevents people from being hamstrung when making major investments that drive consumption, that drive our economy forward. And by circumventing any sort of red tape that would be imposed by means testing, you would actually have a program that is running very streamlined and is running as intended. And people who argue that that is somehow going to increase inflation, or that somehow there's going to be this doomsday scenario, are only displaying their lack of economic understanding. And I say this as someone with an advanced economics degree. My advice to you would be to study up on macroeconomics and have a better understanding of how that works. Looking at you, Rob. And if you say something worth listening to, maybe I'll shut the fuck up to my chat. Thanks.
Okay, I also forgot to put this disclaimer at the start of the show that nobody on the show, unless they say otherwise, is an expert on the topics we are discussing. Please also get information from other sources. Do not get all your political opinions from a roundtable on the internet. That is a terrible idea. We are now going to move on to the next topic. The next topic is going to be about the Bible in schools. Yes. Specifically, I want to ask the question simply that a lot of books recently have been banned from learning curriculum and sometimes even banned from school libraries entirely. One high-profile example was Mouse, which was not banned from schools but was removed from Holocaust teaching curriculum. There was, of course, the conversation surrounding CRT, and recently there has been a response from some activists that, okay, what about the Bible? And so the question for the room is simple: should the Bible be banned from schools? Because the Bible also has graphic content, etc. I'm gonna throw it over to Cam Higby to start us off.
Yeah, sure. Real quick, Dylan, where did you say Mouse was banned from?
I think it was Tennessee. It was like a Tennessee school district. They used it to teach about the Holocaust, but they kicked it out of the curriculum because there is a page in the book where they're stripping to put them in the gas chambers, and they tried to say that was sexual content.
Okay, yeah. So I would say that's fucked up. I don't. I've read Mouse. I don't think that it should be banned from any schools. I know there was a tweet floating around a while ago that was like claiming that a bunch of books were banned in Texas, like Mouse, To Kill a Mockingbird, or the rest of To Kill a Mockingbird. There was one more. I forget what book it was. George Orwell's 1984. That's what it was. Completely unsure. There's not a single district in Texas that has banned these books. But when we're talking about banning the Bible in school, I think we need to what do we mean when we say that? Do we mean banning the Bible from like a teacher bringing the Bible in her purse and reading it at lunch or praying at lunch? Are we talking about a student doing that? Are we talking about giving instruction on the Bible? If we're talking about giving instruction on the Bible, are we talking about the teacher instructing her students or his students that the Bible is absolute from an objective perspective and that it's the right religion, Christianity is the right religion to go by? Or are we talking about the teacher giving instruction that the Bible exists and that Christianity exists? If we're talking about that situation, then I would say that's fine. I was in school. I was taught about the Quran. I was taught about the Torah, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, and that's fine because I think kids should, at an appropriate age, learn about these things and know that they exist and learn about world culture. But I absolutely don't think that the Bible should be taught as the correct religion or from an objective position, I guess. But in terms of just banning it from schools altogether, I would say of course not. I think that'd be ridiculous. I think I should have the right to bring a Bible to school and read it at lunch if I want, or at an appropriate time where I'm not receiving instruction.
Okay, Gabby.
Yeah, this issue comes down to a very fundamental concept called the Establishment Clause. Us as a government really shouldn't be endorsing any sort of religion over another, or condemning any religion over another. I think it's either we get all of them or we get none of them. Either we allow the Bible and we also allow all other religious texts in as well, even if it's some Satanist guide or whatever. Or we don't allow any of them. We can't really make any sort of statement one way or another. Private schools are free to do whatever they want, but public schools, we either have to allow everything or allow nothing. So I think ideally we would be teaching kids about all these different religions, their general ideas, and the history behind them and how they spread and influenced the rest of the world. Since religion's a pretty fundamental part about world history.
Throw it over to Half Baked.
Yeah, so I think teaching about it can typically be done without actually teaching from or reading from the book. So as long as the teachers aren't using it as instruction material, I typically am not going to have a problem with it being used as an educational tool, especially if you're using every other religious book. I think there has to be a distinction made though, because obviously we want these books in the library so kids themselves can go and read them for educational purposes. Again, educators should not be promoting religion in any manner in terms of like public schools. Again, like Gappy said, private schools can do what they wish.
Okay, I'm going to throw it over to Hunter.
Yeah, so of course it would be a constitutional violation to tell students that they cannot bring their Bible to school. It would also be a constitutional violation, however, to teach the Bible in school in a way that advances that religion. So I agree with most of what everybody said thus far, that of course you have a constitutional right to bring your Bible to school and read it if you want, but it gets into pretty bad territory if the teacher is saying that this is the truth or this is the best religion or anything of that sort. Then you are definitely getting into unconstitutional territory. And mind you, I fucking hate the Bible. I also despise God. So I have been recently on my anti-Christian crusade. I really, really despise the tenets of Christianity. I think that it leads to bigotry, homophobia, and is usually based on just delusion and, you know, people praying to their little sky daddy and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that is a religion and it should be respected according to the Constitution. So even though I despise it, it should still be allowed to be brought into school because that is a constitutional right.
Gonna throw it over to Jeb.
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand the context of this topic is a literal like troll petition, right? Nobody was accused of like teaching the Bible as truth in a public school. I want to make that clear. But yeah, I agree in the sense that everything taught in schools obviously needs to have justifiable educational context, right? So there was one, I think everybody so far who's talked agrees that the Bible can be in a school, like if a kid is practicing their own religion, teachers practicing their own religion, or if they're teaching it in a historical context. But Gappy did say one thing I want to push back on in my opening statement, which is like, if you're going to allow one, allow all. I don't know that every religious text needs to be allowed as far as in curriculum. I think obviously you need to go on a case-by-case basis for historicity. So like a Satanist book, I don't know how historically relevant that would be. So I don't know if you need to put that in every history book just because the Bible and the Quran and the Torah are all also in there. But yeah, I don't think the Bible should ever be taught in a public school from a perspective of endorsing a religion, only from a historical context as a historical document. That is it. That's the only thing that a public school should allow. Private schools can teach whatever they want. If you want to have the Satanist Academy at some point, that's fine. But other than that, no.
Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to Rob.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't so far, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of disagreement here. Dylan's original question about mouse. If mouse was banned, it shouldn't have been banned. My understanding from at least the story I was reading was it wasn't banned. They just decided that they were going to use other books for that.
Yeah, it wasn't banned. I said it was stripped from the curriculum specifically.
Yeah, and they were replacing it with other books. Now, if part of their reason was because there was this scene where people were undressing, it's still kind of the thrust of what Dylan's saying. It's true, right? If that factored into their, and I think that's stupid. I think clearly there are things like if you watch Shawshank Redemption in school, we did that, and there are scenes I think where there's nudity, not sexualized nudity, but sort of to show the horrors that was going on with that. I don't really have a problem with that sort of thing. In general, I'm going to agree with what a lot of other people said here. First off, there's two distinctions. There's the question of should the Bible be being taught and the question of should it be banned. And those are two distinct things. Now, even though I'm a Christian, I think that I want our education system to focus on math, literature, civics, things like that. And it seems that they're getting worse and worse at that every year. I'm tired of the indoctrination and the pseudo lefty religion that's being taught and foisted on people in the forms of critical race theory, SEL, all of this, shit about the LGBT community. How about we stop all that shit and get back to teaching people math, things like that, and leave their parents teach them those other things if they desire to do so at home. But that doesn't mean that I want to replace that with even values that I have, such as the Bible. We should focus on those core things. Should it be banned? No, it shouldn't. You shouldn't tell kids that they couldn't bring their own Bible, or you shouldn't not be able to talk about it. And I do agree with Jeb. I see where Gappy's coming from. If you're going to teach one, you should teach them all. But you can't teach them all. I mean, there's thousands upon thousands of religious texts. We can't teach them all. So sort of the big three of the three monotheistic monotheistic religion and maybe some of the other bigger religions. It makes sense to talk about in a historic context. But at the end of the day, I'm less interested in even that than let's get back to having a country with great education that makes the best engineers, that makes the best mathematicians, that makes the best doctors, that makes the best educators, writers, and things like that, and stop with sort of trying to indoctrinate our own moral values. I'm going to the restroom, but I could still hear.
Got it. Mythic?
Okay, great. Yeah, so nobody read the source material. This is by and large about a Florida House Bill 1467 and one atheist Andy sea-lining about doing a satanic LARP to show the underlying mechanism here that he takes exception to, which is that people can arbitrarily it's the fight back of the inevitable outcome of people petitioning to have books removed from school, which will be allowed in this House Bill, the Florida House Bill 1467, which Ron DeSantis is signed, and it's currently it's up to each school district to implement their own version of it, which would necessitate a hearing if parents had concerns over books that are allowed in the curriculum. So what this effectively is along with the Don't Say Gay and the wedge issues of CRT. The diversity, equity, inclusion, learning outcomes, and the Common Core. It's basically a long line and a refutation of those things, wherein reactionary parents can petition to have books that are science-based or have the values and virtues that we want to indoctrinate in children or socialize them with to be good members of society and not hateful little bigots and transphobes. Allow them to those books to exist. So what this is about basically is someone using a sea-lining, a Satanist using the example of the Bible specifically. He stated that the casual references to murder, adultery, sexual immorality, fornication, rape, bestiality, cannibalism, and infanticide preclude it from being used in a lesson plan, which everyone has correctly already stated that it already isn't. And it's not about what people can use or teach in schools. It's about what's included in their library and used as a part of the curriculum. So a lot of this conversation is already kind of moot to the point. But the point is, I think the real panel discussion is now, since we all agree on that, should reactionary parents get to dictate what people with masters in education and library sciences have think are good supplementary educational materials for children? What inputs could a reactionary parent even have in that regards, and should they have it?
Is everybody gone? Can I respond?
I think
No.
Maddie.
No.
Oh, sorry, Maddie.
That's okay. Yeah, so I mean, I'm just, who doesn't love a bandwagon? I'm on the bandwagon with you guys where, I think you're right. Like, I don't mind if the Bible's taught in a secular fashion where you're teaching it in terms of history. Maybe you're teaching it in terms of like literary value, because like it or not, it is probably the most influential piece of literature in the last, 2,000 years. So from that, like just academic standpoint, sure. And I'm not really as concerned like with you guys. I'm not as concerned with schools teaching it in terms like to indoctrinate kids, because the Supreme Court has routinely upheld the division of church and state in that regard. In fact, there are a lot of different Supreme Court decisions that reinforce that point. I think I like that Mythic brought up that a lot of this stems from that Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, and how essentially we're seeing a lot of folks become empowered to have whatever books they want banned, not because it's necessarily inappropriate, but because maybe it suggests certain ideas that run contrary to their political or social ideology. And in that case, I do find that concerning, because part of school and getting an education is being exposed to multiple different points of view and being able to think critically and think for yourself. You don't get that when you're just fed one flavor of thought, of ideas, of ideology. That's just not a good education. That's going to create some pretty small-minded and extremely stupid people. So I think it is troubling that these laws are being created in order to narrow what kids can be exposed to in public school, and it worries me. So that's my opening statement.
Okay, who wants to start us off?
Yeah, it's not about the CRT Don't Say Gay bill. It's about House Bill 1467.
Yeah, so it's hilarious to me, Mythic, how like arrogant you come into this. You're like, oh, so nobody's read the source material. You were probably too busy talking to your audience. Like, Rob,
didn't.
if you let me talk this time. Yeah, so I
didn't,
asked
though.
Danabo when you were too busy talking to your audience what actually this topic pertained to, and he said that it was the troll poll, just like I think it was Jeb said, right? Because I actually thought that it was pertaining to the case where the football coach was praying on the 50-yard line. So don't come in here all cocky, crying about like nobody read the source material. First of all, like there are plenty of different things we could have inferred that the source material actually was. It could have been the Supreme Court case.
Did you read the linked article?
I didn't read the. I did not read the
Danabo linked an article.
Did he? Where did he link it?
Did nobody link it? Did nobody read it?
Where was it?
I definitely read it, and I read the bill. I read the other things. I read that guy's past.
Did you read the article or the abstract?
I read the full article.
Oh,
okay.
Okay, I see it. Yeah.
I mean,
it's largely about it's about House Bill 1467.
I
Is
mean,
what he petitioned for. He petitioned the school districts to have the Bible excluded on those grounds because he doesn't think it's conducive to the learning standards of the Florida school districts. Is explicitly what he was doing in a satirical sort of LARPy Satanist way.
Yeah, so I mean, regardless of the reason why he did it, right? Yeah, I think parents should have the ability to petition their school district about books they do or don't want in their kids' curriculum. And his LARP is going to prove the structure behind that, which is that parents will be able to go to the hearing and they will be able to have their voices heard and say the Bible is a historically relevant document and it should be taught in schools, and it'll get upheld and it'll prove exactly why that Florida bill isn't that consequential. Because yes, absolutely, parents should be able to petition for a hearing to get a book removed because it's a hearing. People are going to have their voices heard, and a district is going to decide whether it's in the parents of the kids who go to those schools' interest to have that book removed or not.
Do you think what banned books do you agree should have been banned historically? Do you think Harry Potter should have been banned? Because
but I don't agree that any individual book should be banned in essence of what the book is, but I do believe that parents who go to a school district should be able to petition to get whatever they want removed from curriculum out of that curriculum.
What if a bunch of people want to
give
the Bible
local
removed?
school districts
I don't know. I
a
think
ton
like
of
maybe,
power?
Hold on, wait, really quick. What if a bunch of parents come forward and they want to get the Bible removed?
From school curriculum?
Yeah.
I mean, I think their kids would be undereducated, but they have the right to do that because it's the school that their kid's going to. Okay. But I don't think it would but again, it's not a petition that would guaranteed get the book banned. It would be a petition that would lead to a hearing that would allow people to have their voices heard. And I think there will be enough people in that district saying, I mean, the Bible is a historically relevant document, just like if they tried to ban the Quran, the Torah, or any other historically relevant religious text.
I think it's important to talk about what's going in context of what's actually happening, where we see examples of curriculum all across this country that are teaching sexually graphic books to children. That's what's going on. The Bible is clearly something that's like there are all sorts of examples of books that won awards that talk about pleasuring yourself, having gay sex. I'll dig up some of the examples if you want. Just give me a minute. I'll dig them up by the end of the But I just want to clear up. If I'm able to provide these examples, then you'll concede that these books should be banned, correct?
No.
Let's get the example.
Right, you won't.
I would want to see the
matter
example
what the
first to
examples are.
determine that.
I would have to see why you.
Right. So I will provide the examples. Don't worry. I will provide examples of that and exactly what's being taught in some of these places. Some of the books are being taught. But that's the sort of thing we're talking about. The Bible is clearly different. And the irony is we already have a system where we're not teaching values from books like the Bible anyways. It's not being taught as instruction. It's just being talked about as historical reference. If a book, for example, has, like, for example, a book, I wouldn't recommend this for children because of the source material. But if you were going to have a serious conversation in 11th or 12th grade about the book Lolita, even though the material in that book is grotesque and disgusting, it's grotesque and disgusting in a way that is itself pointing out that that sort of thing is grotesque and disgusting. So there is educational value in that, as opposed to a book that's glorifying sort of underage sex or glorifying promiscuous behavior, things like that shows graphic material. That's what parents are upset about.
The Bible does
and
the
of course
same.
we should
And
give parents
a lot of this argument comes down to,
we
like,
should give
the
parents
age
the right to be able to have a say in that.
Wait till he reads the Bible.
There's this book that even talks about
completely
stoning people and like hating gay people and stuff like that, and they talk a ton about sex. It's really
Are
crazy.
we talking
I don't know
about?
why we
I
haven't
think.
banned
Are
it
we
yet.
talking? So there's no historical value in the Bible, correct? It's not different.
There
That was
isn't
not the
showing
claim that was just
excesses of
levied.
extreme-
Now, what's the claim that was just levied? If you'd have listened instead of playing video games or talking to your audience, you would have heard the claim that
I
levied.
literally
No one's
have not
teaching
been
the
on mic
values of
hardly
the
at all.
Bible. No one's teaching the Bible.
Wait. Okay, so everybody, when you talk over each other, nobody can hear what's being said. I'm gonna have Rob. I'm gonna give him like 10 seconds to finish this point, and then we're gonna move to other people who want to talk. I'm gonna start writing names down, but I'm gonna see if the conversation can transform naturally. Rob, 10 seconds.
Yeah, no one's saying that we should teach what the Bible says about homosexuality. We're saying that it should be taught as a historically relevant document. That's different than material that might glorify sexuality. That's just something that won some sort of child literature award.
Well, and I think what's important is the fact that when you teach the Bible, right, in a historical context, there are sexually graphic parts of the Bible, there are violently graphic parts of the Bible, and those typically aren't the parts that are brought up in a history book. So we as Christians can admit that no, the Bible's not different in the terms of education, because no matter what, every passage of the Bible that you're putting in a history book needs to be held to the same historical relevance standard that any other book should. But what I'm saying is the same reason why we act like there's a, quote, gridlock in Congress when really it's just issues that the people aren't very decided on yet. I think the same thing about these book banning hearings, right? You're going to have a crazy parent who petitions, might even get enough petitions to make it to a hearing, but once it actually goes into the process, I really don't think the effect is going to be a bunch of religious texts or historically relevant books like Mouse getting banned, because once it actually gets into that bureaucratic process, the bureaucratic process is actually very good at not implementing changes that don't have a good deal of public support. So I think parents should always have that right to petition and to get a hearing. And then the hearing is where, you know, actual voices from the majority of the decision makers are going to be heard. And you're not going to have this massive issue where a bunch of religious texts or a bunch of mouses or anything like that, or catchers in the rye, are going to be banned.
And you may see some communities, some very like religious extremist communities, or like you may have niche areas that they do end up making the mistake of banning these books. But I think, like Jeb's saying, like broad brush, typically you're not going to see this as a problem nationwide, because people are just more intelligent than
you don't even really need
also
the Bible
depends
in school to.
I think it also depends on how you're teaching the Bible. Like, I think that it's definitely very relevant as far as learning about the historical document and learning about it in regards to education, just like you would any other religion. But again, it needs to be taught in a way that is not glorifying the religion or propping it up. So, for example, it should be taught to kids that, hey, this is the Bible. And for example, virtually not every, but many major stories in the Bible are actually just plagiarism of much earlier Greek myths. Or, hey, they talk about Exodus here, but actually there's no evidence whatsoever that the Egyptians ever had slaves and that there was ever any kind of mass exodus. And also the Hebrews are famously good at keeping records, but there's no record of anybody named Moses. So I think that if anything, if we're going to tell the kids about the religion, they need to hear the entire truth and the fact that although this is a historical document, it really has no basis in reality.
Although I don't think
and specifically, if I could say real quick, this again is not about the Bible being taught. This is not about it being taught. It's about whether it should be available in the library. I think it should be. Number one, it's if debate Andes need the source material if they're going to construct arguments against the contents therein. The Bible is not used under the curriculum in anything other than an evangelical, Catholic, or a parochial school or whatever. It's not used in any sort of curriculum in public schools anyways. It's moot, and we're all arguing a point that we all agree on. It isn't the reality anyways.
But we're also talking about the relevance of teaching of like the Bible in school. Like Rob brought up the values in the Bible that should be taught to kids. Like that's fucking delusional.
Where did I say that? Pay attention.
You literally said it in your opening, dude. You said the biblical principles should be taught to the kids. Yes, you did.
No, I didn't. I never said that.
Does anybody else remember hearing that?
No. Rob said there are structures that are currently keeping that from happening. He never said that should be the case. He just said that currently right now we already have.
Well, hey, I may have misunderstood you. That's fine.
Okay.
Like, you don't even necessarily need the Bible to be there. You can like teach about the Bible or the Torah or the Quran, teach that they exist without actually having to have them there. Should it be available in the library? Yeah. Is there really much utility to like having a board for banning books? Like, not really. I would understand like if a group of parents want to ban like a library book, like let's say 50 Shades of Grey somehow made its way into the school library. Like, sure, if you want to petition for that to be banned, like I understand, but like I think that most books, like generally, I think this would be needed to used so rarely that it like there's not even a purpose in having like a completely separate board for doing this. I think that most books should be available in a school library.
The interest is the mechanism. The interest again is the mechanism by which they would do this. Is the mechanism by which they would do it, because I scanned the bill, Gappy. I'm sorry, I scanned it because it seemed a lot of fucking legalese referring to insertion of subheadings into other state statute. So I scanned, and what I gleaned from my code, it doesn't have explicit methodology for the enactment of these things. This seems like a nebulous bill that is used to curry favor with voters, that even is going to be spottily enacted. I didn't spot a pay for, so I don't know how they're going to pay for these. And I don't think that Republicans are basically for adding additional funding to a school department, especially for something like dealing with these books, although they might specifically in this case agree for funding. So I think this is a weird thing. It's going to have spotty implementation. I didn't spot a pay for, and all it's going to do basically is curry favor with reactionary voters and give people who are very motivated to get stuff stricken out of the record a mechanism to remove stuff from libraries. And it's basically a non-issue. And also, I want to say that the Bible should be in schools and it should be taught because Jesus is a base communist, and everyone should know that.
I agree with the point.
Oh, we should talk about that.
I mean, he
Wait, next I said it was Rob. I said Rob, but did you name drop Gappy?
Yes, I mentioned not reading the whole bill.
I can wait, no problem.
Okay, Gappy, then Rob. And Maddie, I'll write your name down.
I just want to say I agree with Mythic that a lot of these bills just feel like it's mainly there to, appease to reactionary voters and voters within their base for primaries and eventually the upcoming election. I think one thing that came up with, and I know this is a different bill that's not really at issue here, but with the Don't Say Gay bill is I think there was some emails going around from parents who were receiving emails from teachers saying like, oh, we're not allowed to teach gender identity, so we're not going to refer to anybody as he or she. We're going to only use the term they, and we're not going to refer to people as husband and wife. We're just going to say significant other because we don't want to be in violation of the bill. That's just like one example of how like the implementation is a little bit wacky and out there, which makes it feel like that it's a lot more of just like a play into their audience base for the upcoming elections rather than, actually caring about, trying to save the kids in their own words.
True.
Right.
So a couple things to say here. First, Hunter, the idea that if we're going to teach in a historical context what the Bible is, we also have to teach your version of why it's not true is fucking insane. That would be equally bad as teaching that the Bible is true. You said we should say there's no record to Moses, there's no this,
That's
no
not
that.
my version, dude. That's called the historical facts of the matter right
Hunter,
now.
Just let's go point by point. So Rob, say that point. We'll have Hunter respond and just back and forth on that.
Sure,
I'm
he
actually
responded.
interested in this.
If he has more to say, that's fine. But
Okay,
he responded.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the first. The second, like, we have to look at the context of what these things are being taught. Even Mythic gives the game away here, which is the idea that parents shouldn't have a say in what's being taught. These are public education areas that public tax dollars are going to, and you're damn right that parents should have control over the education. This sort of appeal to the authorities because they have teaching degrees or something like that is incredibly ridiculous. Look at what's happened during COVID. There's a reason that so many teachers unions are against education transparency and bills for transparency, and that's because people saw during COVID when their kids were being taught at home how disgusting, how authoritarian, and how indoctrinating much of the education was that was coming from these people through all sorts of things, CRT and other sorts of things.
Is this to me?
We also saw that these teachers unions that are supposedly the experts don't give a shit about students whatsoever, which is why they went against all established science and recommended, to the chagrin of many Americans and people around the first world, that we lock down schools, even though every other first world country didn't do that. Lastly, to answer Maddie's request, I'll read this quote from ABC News, an article. 2 books. Gender Queer, an illustrated memoir, contains explicit illustrations of oral sex and masturbation. The novel Lawn Boy contains graphic descriptions of sex between men and children. Both books were previous winners of the American Library Association's Alex Awards, which each year recognize 10 books written for adults that have special appeal to young adults aged 12 through 18. This was in all Fairfax County school systems and in libraries across the country, in school libraries across the country.
Can I respond now to what Rob said? So I'm not saying that my version. I'm not saying that my version of anything be taught. I'm saying that if we're going to teach it as a historical religion or as a historical artifact, then we should also teach the facts of the matter in regards to history. And historically, there is not any evidence that many of these stories told in the Bible are true. Most of them are based on ancient Greek myths. Like, for example, the Epic of Gilgamesh came out hundreds of years before the book of Genesis was even written, which had almost an identical story to the story of Moses. These are things that are all pertinent to the historical nature of the Bible. So I'm not saying teach it my way. I'm saying teach the actual history of the matter.
But Hunter, when we teach,
I put it in the general debate,
religions,
Mythic. I put it in the debate hashtag group in the Discord there.
When we teach these religions, like in school, and we use these documents to like teach the religions, we're not like using these documents to teach like how history played out. It's more so I feel like teach using like reference to the documents maybe to teach like the history of the culture in different areas of the world rather than
That
like
makes sense,
how
yeah.
history unfolded.
If
right?
you're
We
like,
can
hey,
use, like,
here's what
actual
some
historical
people
documents to
believe,
teach
this is
history.
what, yeah. if
Yeah, and
you're-
I think
Yeah, so like you
Mythic-
don't have to
hold on.
discredit the Bible. Like I would say that it would be equally wrong to like just go off on a tangent like in instruction and discredit the Quran or the Torah, right? Like I think that would be equally wrong, or to try to discredit like Hinduism or Buddhism or whatever. You can just use those things to like teach the history of the culture, which is how I was taught in like global studies. I wasn't taught
If
like
you're
this is
if you're
how
simply
history
teaching
unfolded
it, then
because this
that's
is how the Bible says it. I
Right.
was taught like, oh, there's this group of people. They're called Jews. They practice Judaism. They have the Torah and they worship this God. Blah blah blah. Blah. You know, whatever. And like same
Yeah,
thing
but
with
I
like
think Mythic
Islam.
made a
and the
good
Bible
point
kind of
earlier.
discredits
Hold on.
itself also, so it doesn't really need to be
Mythic
discredited.
Sure, but
kind
you
of
don't
made a
have to
good
get into
point.
give instructions.
Mythic kind of made a
Jeb,
good point earlier where
then
I
we have
don't
to go to
know that.
Maddie.
Oh, sorry.
No, I said Jeb, and then we got to go to Maddie because
Okay.
you're commenting on this point. And then
Mythic
Horatio.
made a
waiting.
good point earlier when he said that, and now that I think about it, when I'm thinking back to like, and I even was in like the AP World History where we went really deep into it. I don't think any specific passages from any of the religious texts were used in the history. So I think we should maybe recenter the conversation because the bill does specifically pertain to what's in the library, and maybe we shift the conversation more toward like what we include for kids to be able to grab at a public school library. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I agree with Mythic. I don't think I remember any specific passages from the Quran, the Bible, or the Torah being used when I was being educated about those religions.
Especially not in relation to world history. Yeah, they don't reference specific passages at all. They talk about the movements, adherence, and the way it influences society, culture, and everything else. And the issue is, by and large, CRT, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Acts, Common Core. It's the problem with what people are taking exception to things that buck tradition that are in the school libraries. That's specifically the problem, and it is a wedge culture war issue that is signaling to voters in that district that he's a safe bet for conservatives and traditional people.
Maddie.
To be clear,
Oh, sorry.
can I just
Maddie's
hit
been
real
waiting
quick?
for 5
Okay.
seconds, literally 5.
Shortest
Yeah.
real quick.
See, with CRT, it's not just in the library; it's actually being used as instruction.
Maddie.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's interesting that we're talking about, oh, but they have like, maybe we should only be able to teach it where you show both sides, whatever. There have been a lot of court cases, including a few Supreme Court cases that reinforce that. So Hunter, you are right on the money. Like they specifically say that if used as part of instruction, they cannot, here's the quote, the purpose of the law said that you are not able to single out a particular religious belief and promote it as an alternative to accepted scientific theory or accepted theory about other things. So you can teach it in like a historical context, but there are certain parameters you have to adhere to.
Right.
So like that's legal precedent. And I think the other thing, and maybe I'm the only person who feels this way, but like when it comes to parents having control over like what their kids learn, I don't think that parents should necessarily have that much say, especially because I don't expect every parent to be a literal expert in the best like educational techniques for early childhood development. And there are already exemptions you can take based on religion. So there you can exempt your kid out of certain instructions if in some way it goes against your religions. There's plenty of that. I went to school with some Mormons, and when we did our sex education, they left, and that was how it was.
That would require like a
I just
massive
don't
overhaul
think
of the
that
education
if
system,
parents
though,
were
to say
able
they
to
shouldn't have
like just
say.
as long as they band together and blamed any book they wanted to, no, it's a dangerous precedent. And if you say, well, don't they know best for their child's education? Well, are they an education expert? Do they study this like regularly? Do they know? No.
I'd like to
It's not
cut
about
in
do
real,
they know
well, hold
best,
on,
it's
really
do they
quick.
have the right.
Maddie was
local
addressing me
level.
here, so if I could just really quickly say, I think that what we need to be careful not to get mixed up with is all parents should be allowed to voice their concerns to the school. That's absolutely true. Parents, if they have an issue with something being taught, they should have the ability to voice that to the school. But whether or not they are able to dictate what their child learns, I think is a different thing. So for example, if you have like a caveman parent who thinks that sex and gender aren't different and they think that that's like lefty indoctrination or whatever, they obviously shouldn't have the right to deprive their child of scientific knowledge, which in all fairness is a bit of a risk considering the fact that we have not one, not two, but 5 different studies which all indicate that religiosity is strongly correlated with a lower degree of scientific literacy and a lower degree of scientific trust altogether. So there are definitely some risks there. Obviously, yeah, parents shouldn't have the right to just like dictate every single thing their kid is learning, specifically if they're trying to deprive their kid of something that is actual like accepted scientific fact. But they should have the right, of course, to voice their concerns.
That's what this bill does, though. It goes to a hearing with the exact board that dictated for that content to be in the curriculum in the first place or be in the library in the first place. It's not like it's putting it up to a vote to a bunch of caveman parents. It's allowing them to petition for a hearing from the very school board that put that book in the library to then give them a chance to rescind it after they have heard the arguments of the parents. This bill doesn't just say, oh, we do a fucking hand roll call vote in the courtroom and then the book is gone if it's gone.
Of course.
It's like they're in
We
a
entrust.
hearing.
Yeah, this is
So
why
I
we
don't think the
entrust
bill
local
is
school
bad.
boards
You should
to
always be
this.
able to address your grievances
wanna-
to the government.
I want to
but-
throw it over to Half Baked Takes. He's been on the list for a while. We have Half Baked, Gappy, Cam, Jeb, and Mythic on the list.
Yeah, Maddie, we put so much value in like local school boards because we entrust them to be experts in this, and typically they are held to a standard by parents because, again, you may not put a lot of value in that, but most people will. That parents should be instilling some moral values, and I know you're probably saying like you're not agreeing with this, but
I'm
depends
just,
how you're
I'm
reaching
just
those.
requiring most people. And yeah, I mean, there's a massive difference. And I think, Hunter, thank you for making that distinction, which is anyone has the right to voice their concerns, voice their opinion. But when it comes to those voices being almost immediately actionable to actively ban certain things, that to
that's
me
what we're
just
saying it's
doesn't
not.
right. I'm
It's not immediately
agreeing.
It's not.
And I'm
but it's
saying
not
that part of
dismissively-
like when you mentioned school boards, you're absolutely right. That is a proper forum for parents to make certain concerns known. But when it gets as granular and specific as looking for individual books they want to ban, it just gets problematic. And it's also something that like I don't think every parent necessarily is an expert on, and I think it's dangerous to give them that much control.
Obviously we don't want
books.
these parents
think-
coming and bitching
yeah.
about like whole groups of books. Like you have Rob down there talking about CRT. Like we're conflating like the Bible being in school, which is like explicitly something that's like explicitly laid out in the Constitution. We're going to have a separation of church and state,
Right.
versus like an age appropriate book or something that they feel is like they should their kid shouldn't be learning, like Robin DiAngelo or Ibram X Kendi or whatever CRT people they point to. It just that's a fundamental disconnect we have.
It would
here.
depend
Yeah,
too
I
on
think
the
there's-
actual literature that they are taking issue with. So of course I'm sure there are going to be some parents who object to if there is something that's being sexually explicit being taught to the kids. Of course, then that might be something that the parents don't want to be taught there. But you also run the risk again of parents wanting books, say, teaching about gay people removed because they're a Christian and they think being gay is a sin, even though they have no actual basis for that. So you definitely do run some risks there. But again, I think that all parents should have their voices heard.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
I
throw it
mean-
over to. I want to throw it over to Gappy. You've just been waiting for a while. Jeb, you are after Cam Higby and Robert. What's your name now?
I want to bring up something that Rob mentioned about some books that were nominated for like young adult awards, and they won these young adult awards, and they talked about very graphic things like related to like sex or like related to lots of different issues. Young adults, like people who are in high school and shit, are dealing with a lot of issues, and they should be exposed to some of the issues that they're going to deal with in the real world. They're not 5 years old, right? They're not giving a lawn boy out to 5-year-old children, expecting them to read this 300-page book or anything like that. I think especially when we're talking about high schools, the idea of trying to censor books just because we're worried they might be too sensitive of a topic is probably not where we want to do it. Especially like, and as you've brought up, like you feel that people are worried about in college they're not able to speak about certain topics or voices or issues, right? This is an opportunity by having these types of frankly controversial books to try and facilitate that discourse in a
Right.
high school. I think Lawn Boy, which you brought up, has like a whole section where like there's a guy who talks about how he hates illegal immigrants and how he hates gay people and stuff like that. That's in the same exact book that you mentioned earlier.
Well, Christians
had some
would love
other
that
like
part.
graphic imagery. So, you know, I think it's totally fine to expose high schoolers to that type of, you know, controversial issues. I don't think we should be afraid because it might not be age sensitive in that regard, because we kind of forget that, you know, though we're nominated for awards for young adults, not for 5-year-olds.
Right, that's definitely
And,
a crucial
just real quick, if I could
take,
just respond
Hunter.
to this quickly.
Christians hate immigrants. That's a hot take, Hunter.
If I could respond to this real quick to Gappy. For example, there's articles that talk about that there were parents in Texas that said it was in their 4th grader's school library, the book Line Boy. So it's not just exclusively, and it won an award for education for young readers 12 through 17. A 17-year-old is vastly different than a 12-year-old, and parents absolutely have the right. Look, Maddie's giving the game away, right? Like she's trying to walk it back a little, but the reality, and I hope Democrats run on this. The reality is they don't think you as a parent should have the right to be able to control the education for your child. Go ahead and run on that. We've seen what the experts are about. We've seen how terrible they are. And I don't want to derail when I get my chance to speak. I have a question for Hunter pertaining to this, but
was that specific instance like a K-12 school? Because there are some schools that have kindergartners all the way to 12th graders and they all share the same library.
I didn't. The article I read honestly didn't say that. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think that
nonetheless,
would be
that
important,
sort of
right? Because
material.
then they might have a lot of like 12th grade or 11th grader books.
Well, I don't know. That would
be kind of weird, but it was K-12. That makes sense.
If it's accessible by 4th graders, then maybe that particular library, if it services kindergartners through 12th graders, shouldn't have that book there.
That we shouldn't. So we shouldn't have. If it's a kindergartner through 12th grade school, which does exist, like they just shouldn't have any books available.
That doesn't matter because he said
they shouldn't have books that have graphic depictions of oral and anal sex.
Well, there are lots of books that are like for 9th and 10th graders and onwards that I don't think a kindergartner should be able to handle. I don't think a kindergartner should be able to check out Paradise Lost. Does that mean we should ban Paradise Lost from a K-12 school?
I mean, they can separate the libraries for the.
Yeah,
I feel like
that's what I was
thinking. At that point, we're like making it extremely
Easy
difficult.
fix,
Hold on, let me in here. Let me talk. So
Yeah, Cam, you are next. Then it got Cam, Jeb, Mythic, then Rob. Yep.
So like, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Rob. Earlier you said that there was some books that were like pertaining to sex with minors.
Yes.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff, like I would completely understand why parents wouldn't want that in their student's library, like in general, regardless of age. And I think like I think in most cases, like people wanting books to be banned is usually pretty invalid, but there are obviously like circumstances where some specific books or specific types of books like shouldn't be accessible to people of that age group, or people at least like in the educational setting, right? Now again, like I said, in most cases I think that these like claims to banning books would be like pretty invalid, but I think that there should be some like really like a system where parents like concerns are seriously like taken seriously, right? And I feel like at school boards a lot of times like they aren't taken seriously, and sometimes you've got crazies that come in and all of that, but like parents should be able to like get together and petition that something be changed and have the school board seriously consider. And I think, Hunter, you agree with that. I just, the only place I get concerned is that sometimes the school board doesn't take those things seriously and they just say, oh, well, we're ultimately in charge. We can just do whatever we want. And that creates a problem, but there's also obviously a problem with just letting parents vote on what they want, because you might live in a place where the majority of the parents are like essentially brainless, right? Like, I don't know. It's complicated. I don't have all the solutions, but
I think it's just
You can
that
vote
we're kind
those
of.
people out of office.
Well, I think we're just getting at the fact that there's definitely a nuanced gray area as far as how much control do the parents have and how much control does the school have, right? So, of course, if there's some kind of an offensive literature with depicting explicit sexual imagery being taught to fucking children, then that probably wouldn't be acceptable. And I, as a parent, if my child was going to a school where that was being taught, I might have an issue with that too. But then if you have a bunch of like inbred dipshits who are all like super Christian and think that gay people are bad because God, Sky Daddy says so, then like you run into, again, an issue there where they're going to try to restrict the truth from their children because they're, inbred dipshits. So I think that it's just, we're kind of getting at the fact that there's a gray area here, and it's hard to determine where that line is, but I think we kind of all acknowledge to the very least that there is absolutely a line.
Yeah, so let me.
I'm sorry for getting hung up on this point.
Hold on, no, hold on. I've got one more thing on this point.
Okay.
Let me.
Okay, we got 3 people on the list, but I'm gonna have Half Baked talk since he hasn't talked a lot this show. Then we have Jeb, Mythic, and Rob. And I saw Jeb wanted to talk really bad on this too. Gappy wants to talk again, so I'll write his name down. And Maddie.
No, you guys can keep the conversation going. My bad. I didn't have a specific point.
Oh, okay. Jeb.
Yeah, so we agree, right, that parents' concerns should be heard legitimately by the school board. The school board shouldn't just be able to dismiss them, but we also agree they shouldn't just be able to mob vote to get something banned in case they're in an area where they predominantly believe something stupid. So it feels to me like the thing that would cover that gray area is maybe a bill that simply formalizes the process of parents petitioning their school board and ensures that a formal hearing is had if there's enough support for a book being banned, which is the exact fucking bill we're talking about. So there is a gray area. We agree that the line is somewhat evasive and that maybe a case-by-case look would be better for this process. This bill does that exact thing. It allows parents to petition for a hearing that case-by-case decides where that line is, dependent on the historical relevancy or the appropriateness of the different age groups that have access to the book for a given book. We all are saying a bunch of things sort of around this topic that don't have anything to do with the bill, when the bill seems to be, similar to DeSantis' abortion bill, kind of an even-handed answer to both sides' concerns, whereas parents don't get mob rule to ban any book that they want, but they also get a formalized process in which they know that their voice is being heard by their school board. I don't see any problem here with this bill.
Okay. Rob, you are right after Mythic, so I'm just gonna have Mythic go first.
Okay, broadly speaking, I was going to save this for summary conversation or whatever, but basically, I don't know. I think we've sort of gone off the rails here with this, or we're all in a conclusion. I would like to say that this is probably good. I like direct democracy. This is some fucking ANCOM shit. Anything that facilitates participation with people who, by and large, have fucking backed out of electoralism and think interacting with the voting system is pulling a lever every 2 to 4 years. If this gets fucking fat corn syrup slugging parents off the fucking couch and into their school districts where they need to be to petition for either more funds or whatever, or actually interjects them into their child's life for once and actually reviewing what they're reading, whatever, I'm basically for that. I think it's good for the community. I think it's good for the parents. I think it's good for everybody. And again, the Bible should be read because it's based homosexual, it's homoerotic communism, basically, with the New Testament at least. And also, broadly speaking, just to Rob's point, those 2 books ended up being reinstated. The Fairfax School District returned those 2 books, Lawn Boy and Genderqueer, a memoir. Both were reinstated and added back to the library after review of which is similar to the review that would happen at a hearing like this. So I'm not necessarily against this. I just think that this comes at a time where above and beyond what is the sort of direct democracy that this might actually facilitate, that wasn't the intent of the bill, and the spirit of the bill was to foment wedge division and clip-chimped headlines and clickbait and everything else.
Rob, you said you had a question for me. You want to ask it real quick?
Yeah, Rob, you're next. Then Gappy, then Maddie.
The fact that it was reinstated is probably a good thing that DeSantis is passing, that Florida's passing these other bills as well. I heard someone talk a bill, Don't Say Gay. I'm not aware of what that is. Parental rights bills, maybe what you're talking about. The question I have for Hunter is this. You continue to say things such as the scientific basis between the differences between sex and gender. I just have a 2-part question for you. The first is real simple. Did you support or go against what's being termed here the Don't Say Gay, the parental rights bill? Did you support or oppose that?
I actually took a pretty middle of the road approach on there because I hadn't dug super deep into it. I do think calling it the Don't Say Gay thing is pretty hyperbolic, but I also think that there are certain implications with the bill that essentially require therapists or school board members to report things to their child, or report things their child tells them to the parents, unless they believe that the child might be abused if they tell them that. But I think that there's, again, some gray area there between what is going to be abusive versus what is something that might want to be told in private, in confidence, and not be necessarily told right off the bat to the parents. So I think that there's a lot more nuance there, but no, calling it the Don't Say Gay bill is actually pretty hyperbolic.
Okay, so for anyone who was against the bill, anyone on this panel, and if it's no one, that's fine. My question is, what conversation through 5 through 8-year-olds on gender identity or sexual orientation should we be having?
Which ones do you take exception to?
Well,
I'm asking you.
I have a question for Rob, a follow-up question.
Okay, Rob, can you ask that as your ending statement and people can answer that in their ending statements? Because I feel like this is going to spiral into a whole new thing and we still have a whole topic to do. So can you do that? Well, I'll do you first so people can answer your question.
If you want, I
Yeah,
can just
that's fine.
answer because I'm about to head out actually.
Okay, you can answer now, and this can also be your closing.
Okay, yeah, I would just close with asking Rob. Rob, when you were 8 years old, did you know you were straight?
No, I didn't think I wasn't a sexual. I
Not
wasn't
not
a sexual
sexual even,
being
but when
then.
you were 8 years old, like, did you find like any kind of attraction to women or anything at all?
Did you know you were a
Not to
boy?
my knowledge.
Did
I
you know
knew
that
I
you
was a
were?
boy.
Did you know that you were a boy? That's a good question. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously children have some kind of an understanding of gender identity, and gender identity is not a
No.
sexual
I knew I
thing.
was a boy because that's my sex. I don't play lefty games that tried to differentiate. Through
Right, and see,
semantic
you're
sex
actually a
and gender
perfect example
semantics.
of the caveman parent, because you don't believe the scientific
No.
consensus on this issue.
You're the
No, because you're an
that's true.
inbred
That's fair.
dipshit who's
That's
far
fair.
too scared to actually trust any kind of
That's right.
scientific
Before you
literature.
leave, can I respond before you leave? I will take the label that you could erroneously call me an inbred dipshit, but I will take from your actions that you are a groomer dipshit. Which, given what you did with BX Bullet and attempting to have child pedophilia of her daughter, I'm not surprised that you
Wait,
would take this.
I had
pro-groomer
nothing to do
stance
with that.
there.
Holy shit! Wait, what is
Yeah,
this?
you were helping the guy that was.
What is
you
this
were- I saw the
baseless
chat logs.
accusation?
I saw the
Holy
chat logs.
shit!
Why don't you bring on BX and
Literal
talk about it,
slander.
groomer?
Dude, I think that it's very
Oh,
obvious
inbred
to
dipshit was
Rob
slanderous.
Noor that
It's
he
okay,
is.
groomer.
He's
It's
apparently
okay.
very.
It's all right, groomer.
Rob,
Can you?
Wait,
Hold on, wait. This is between me and Rob. Let me wrap this up, okay? Rob,
Being an
you need
inbred
to
dipshit.
hold on. No. I
Wait,
get to respond to this.
Pause this a second. Okay, you need to pause this a second. So on one hand, I'm like, great, I want to shut this down because this is completely off topic and I don't want to do this. But on the other hand, Rob just threw a pretty big accusation to Hunter, so I have to
Yeah.
give him the right to respond.
Of
Since
course.
this is again in front of a bunch of people.
Yeah,
You're all
so
making Dylan want to leave politics
so
even more,
that
by the way.
drama that is now like what 10 months old now at this point was somebody reached out to me and wanted to come onto the stream. I didn't know the full details, and upon finding out the full details, I refunded them the money and told them to get the fuck out of here and then blocked them from all of my platforms. So one, nice try lying, Rob, once again proving you're
Okay,
an
groomer.
inbred dipshit. Second of all, I have another question for you. I have another question for you in regards to the groomer thing. So I don't know why you keep calling me a groomer based on something that was
It's
completely
homophobic.
false. So do you think that it's grooming every time Disney depicts a straight couple kissing on TV?
No, the idea, what is grooming is thinking that we should have instruction to 8-year-olds, 5 through 8-year-olds on gender identity because people that are 5 or 8 understand the biological reality that they're a boy or a
Wait,
girl.
what is
And I'm
what
not
is
surprised that
instruction
someone
mean?
like
Gender identity
you
and
would
sexuality
embrace those groomer
What does
mentality,
instruction mean?
Seeing as how you were willing to take money from a guy who was
I
showing
wasn't.
underage pictures
Wait,
of
why
people
are you
that were,
lying right now?
you
I
were-
wasn't willing to
you
do
did.
that,
Are
bro.
you
You
fucking
did.
stupid?
We'll,
So-
we'll go to the record.
So
We can
you'll
hold
see
the
what
debate on
happens
it.
here.
Go on the
Just to be
Goose Bowl
clear,
and do
really
it. What do you
quickly.
think?
So what happened was
Are
me
your
and Rob,
headphones
me
working?
and Rob recently had a debate over vaccines, and apparently he's still malding and butthurt about it. So now he's actually resorting to unbased claims that are literally have been now disproven 5 months ago based on DM
No,
screenshots.
unbased.
So
Yeah,
once
this is
again, Rob,
gross, Rob.
hold on. Can I just make it known that Rob, you are indicating once again that you are a dipshit retard essentially, and this is exactly why
Oh, there's
people.
a good word. There he is.
Yeah, and this
There
is
he
exactly why
yeah.
people like you shouldn't
go.
have complete
There you go,
control
Hunter.
over what their
Rob,
child is learning
there you
because
go.
Making-
we are actually
you
smart
having
enough to
like
recognize that, hey,
accusations is what-
sex and
and
gender
gross.
is different and we can look at this throughout society and how gender's changed. And again, because you're an inbred dipshit, you're too scared to actually follow the
I'm
scientific
homophobic.
literature, and instead you want to cling to your backwards, old, bigoted beliefs, which
I'm
let me guess
homophobic.
is founded in the fact that you're a fucking Christian.
And I'm fine.
I'll just say this real quick. I didn't start coming at you in any sort of negative way like that until you called me an inbred dipshit. And I crushed you in that vaccine debate, so I'm not
You
malding.
called me a
That's why you were
groomer. What are you
unwilling to do
fucking
future
talking
debates.
about?
Citation
Right
needed.
after you called me an inbred dipshit, you groomer.
Oh,
That's
well,
right,
because
I
you are
did,
one.
because
okay,
you're a
well,
groomer.
no, that was just to make it clear. That was not an ad hom. That was just a statement of fact.
Sure. So you know my
Stupid
parents.
shit.
Thanks for admitting it that you're an inbred dipshit. Fucking idiot. Oh my god,
Is
dude.
that what I did?
Oh my
Is that
god!
what I did,
Please,
groomer?
please, can we just,
Got him.
can we just
Wow.
wrap this up?
Holy
Please.
shit.
I have one thing to say on the topic.
Yeah, we have 2 people left on the list. Gappy and Maddie. Hunter, you're free to leave.
Yeah, I
Okay.
could just really quick
Later,
say one
Hunter.
thing. I'm very sorry that I kind of broke the rules. Next time I'll go a little easier on Rob. Clearly that was very ableist. I'm sorry, Rob. Have a good one, Dylan.
Good one.
Later.
I fucking hate that chuckle fuck. And it's very satisfying being able to yell the fuck out at them. Bye, Hunter. Yeah, Hunter being stupid. Hunter's so mad because he's wrong. Hunter's pretty vile. You can see his inner chud coming out. Ooh, oh no. I like how the other chat is literally a combination of people whining that I'm still a conservative, and yeah, Hunter's such a soy, and then people whining because they're mad that their big daddy Rob Noor just got BTFO'd in an exchange. $100 store Destiny trying so hard. Promise he has no original thoughts. Dude, if any of these people were on my stream right now, they would get absolutely demolished. 3 seconds. How was Hunter being stupid? I wasn't. A fatality? You know Hunter lost the moment he started throwing insults? Ah, yes. I didn't get stun locked and quit. Oh, man. I guess people are super scared and offended now. Oh, boo-hoo. Hunter threw insults. You'll notice that it's the people that claim to be like the big tough conservatives that all care about facts and logic that literally crumble and break down into a heaping pile of sobbing bullshit as soon as they're actually confronted with mean insults. And also, yeah, it's like, whoops. Also, yeah, that's really fucking funny that they're like, Hunter was being immature. What about Rob calling me a goddamn groomer? Yeah, I'm sorry, I try not to say retard very often, but God, sometimes people just fucking deserve it. Hey, Acri Void, thank you very much for the $5. Hold this 5, Hunter. Dealing with Rob is a brain cell holocaust. True. Thank you for the $5 donation, my friend. Why do Rob and Fabian sound like clones? Hunter was so full of shit about BX Bullet thing. He only refunded the money after she found out from people in his Discord what he was doing, so he super backpedaled. That's actually a lie completely, just so we're clear. That is not at all what happened. The only money that I got from that guy was literally a random donation before I even had an understanding of who the fuck that person was. And as soon as I did, I was like, okay, yeah, no, get the fuck out of here, creep. All right, I'm going to go ahead and raid, what the fuck? Dylan. I wonder who they're talking about now. Who's this? Oh no. This has become exhausting. I don't know, man. It's funny because people get so mad if you respond a little bit angrily to a dumb fuck debunked claim. Like, yeah, what the fuck am I supposed to say? Oh god, not CTV. Alright, I'm sending you off to watch some Stardust, guys. You don't need any more of this cringe. That was definitely a fun exchange, though. Alright, guys, love you all. Have a good rest of your night, and thank you to everybody that donated during this very exhausting panel. I'll see you all soon. Peace out. Go watch some Stardust, okay? You insulted Rob, and then he agreed that your insult was right. I know. It was hilarious. Hunter was immature. Why? Because I got angry? Yeah, I'll get angry. If somebody calls me a fucking groomer. Alright, guys. Go watch some Stardust. I will see you later. Peace out.